At Morixa Tales, we believe in the power of storytelling. Our scripts weave together deep emotions and dramatic turns to deliver justice where it is most needed. Experience captivating mysteries where the truth eventually shines through, leaving a lasting impact on your heart and mind.
Right after my father's funeral, the gravedigger pulled me aside and whispered, "The coffin is empty. Your father paid me years ago to bury an empty one." I thought the man had lost his mind, but then he slipped an old brass key into my hand and said quietly, "Don't let your husband know. Go to storage unit 20. Right now." Inside that room, I discovered something that left me completely frozen, and in that moment, I realized that from now on, I might have to run away from my husband just to survive. Thank you so much for staying with me through this journey. If you found this story powerful, please like and comment below. Where are you watching from your city, your country? I read every response. A reminder, this story blends fiction with lessons for educational impact. Names and settings are coincidental, but the wisdom I'm sharing matters. Your engagement keeps this channel alive. I appreciate you. I just finished delivering Dad's eulogy at Austin Memorial Park Cemetery when the gravedigger's calloused hand closed around my arm. The words I'd barely managed to speak without breaking down were still caught in my throat. And now this. "Ma'am?" His voice was low, urgent, rough as gravel. "I need to tell you something." "Not now." I tried to pull away my eyes, scanning the dispersing crowd for my mother. She was already at the car, leaning heavily on my Aunt Susan's arm. The other mourners were drifting toward the parking lot, dark figures against the gray October sky. "Please, I really can't." "That coffin is empty." The world tilted. For a moment, I couldn't process the words. Empty. The coffin I'd just stood beside the one I'd placed my hand on while promising Dad I'd take care of Mom. The one that supposedly held Raymond Martinez, 62 years old, my father dead from a heart attack 3 days ago. That's not funny. My voice came out sharper than intended, the lawyer in me surfacing even through grief. "I don't know what kind of sick joke." "No joke, ma'am." He glanced nervously over his shoulder. The other cemetery workers were occupied across the grounds, too far to hear. "Your father came to me 20 years ago with this letter." Vincent said, his weathered hand trembling slightly. "Told me to keep it safe, said if he ever had to disappear, if something happened and he needed to vanish, I should give it to you and deliver the key." 20 years. My mind stuttered over that timeline. I was 14 then, just starting high school. But 5 years ago. Vincent continued. "He came back, updated the plan, paid me a significant sum to execute everything when the time came. He said things were escalating, said someone dangerous had entered your life. He knew they were getting close. 5 years ago, right when I'd met David. I saw him." The words felt hollow even as I said them. "At the viewing, I saw my father's body." "You saw what he wanted you to see, ma'am." A chill ran down my spine despite the warm Texas afternoon. This man, this stranger with dirt under his fingernails and eyes that had seen too many burials, was either telling me the truth or he was completely insane. "I'm calling the police." I reached for my phone, but Vincent Hayes, I'd seen his name on the funeral paperwork, shook his head sharply. "Don't." He pressed something into my palm. Cold metal, small and solid. "Your father said you'd want to call someone. Said you were a lawyer, always needing proof, always needing to make sense of things. He said to give you this. Said you'd understand." I looked down. A brass key worn smooth with age with the number 20 stamped into the head. "What is this?" "Unit 20. Lone Star Storage on South Congress Avenue. Your father's been there waiting." Vincent reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope yellowed at the edges, my name written across the front in Dad's distinctive handwriting. The same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards, report cards, the deed to my first car. 20 years. I was 14 then, just starting high school. Dad had been preparing for the possibility, even back then a contingency plan for a detective working organized crime. But 5 years ago, when David appeared in my life, Dad knew the threat had become real. That's when he activated the plan. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, staring at the envelope like it might explode. "Ma'am." Vincent's weathered face was pale now, his eyes darting toward the parking lot. "You need to go. Now. Don't go home, not yet. Your father was very specific about that. My father is dead. But my voice wavered on the word dead because suddenly I wasn't sure of anything anymore. Ma'am, Vincent's hand on my arm tightened just for a second. Please, just read the letter. Go to Unit 20. Your father said it was a matter of life and death. He turned and walked away before I could respond, his boots crunching on the gravel path, disappearing between the headstones like he'd never been there at all. I stood there alone, holding a key in one hand and an envelope in the other. Behind me, the coffin that was supposedly empty waited to be lowered into the ground. Ahead, my mother was getting into the car, probably wondering where I was, and in my pocket, my phone buzzed again. I opened the envelope with trembling hands, the seal cracked old glue giving way. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in Dad's handwriting. My eyes skipped to the first line and my knees nearly buckled. Emma, if you're reading this, then I've had to disappear. The rest of the letter blurred as tears filled my eyes. Words jumped out at me. Marcus has given you the key. Everything I'm about to tell you is true. I'm sorry. Go to Unit 20. And then in larger letters, underlined 3 times. Do not go home. Not until you've been to the unit. Not until you understand what's happening. If you've received a message from David asking you to come home, especially if it sounds wrong or out of character, do not go. My phone buzzed a 3rd time. With shaking hands, I pulled it out. 3 messages from David, my husband of 5 years, the man I'd shared a bed with last night while he held me through my grief. The first, Emma. The second, where are you? The third, come home now. 3 words. No honey. No sweetheart. No, I'm worried about you. Just a command, cold and flat, like he was giving orders to someone who had to obey. I looked back at the letter at Dad's handwriting swimming before my eyes. The last line was the worst. They have your mother. I will explain everything. I love you, my girl. Go to Unit 20 now. Wait. Son. Dad had written son. But I was his daughter. Was this letter even meant for me? No. I looked at the envelope again. Emma in Dad's handwriting. This was meant for me. The son was a mistake, or maybe my breath caught, maybe it was intentional. Maybe it was proof this letter was real, that Dad had written it in such a rush so long ago, that he'd made an error and never corrected it because he'd hoped he'd never need to send it. Vincent's voice echoed in my head. If you get that text, run. I looked at my phone again. David's message glowed on the screen demanding I come home. Something about it felt wrong. Not just the missing endearments, but something deeper. Something my gut was screaming at me to notice. I read Dad's letter one more time, my hands still shaking. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and slipped it into my purse along with the key. I didn't go to my mother. I didn't go to the car. I walked in the opposite direction toward the back of the cemetery where I'd parked that morning away from everyone. My phone buzzed again, David calling this time. I silenced it. Behind me, they were lowering an empty coffin into the ground. Ahead of me, a storage unit held answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. And somewhere between those 2 points, my father was either alive or I was losing my mind. I got into my Honda and locked the doors. Through the rearview mirror, I saw David's black Audi pulling into the parking lot. He'd come to the cemetery. He was here. I started the engine, my heart hammering. Whatever was in Unit 20, it had better be worth this. Because right now, I was choosing to trust a dead man's letter over my living husband. And that terrified me more than anything. Alone in my Honda at the cemetery's edge, I forced myself to read every word Dad had written. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter a second time. The first read had been panic skimming while my brain screamed, this couldn't be real. Now I needed every detail. Through my rearview mirror, mourners were leaving headlights flickering on as October dusk settled over Austin. I'd locked the doors, engine idling windows cracked enough to smell autumn leaves and disturbed earth. Dad's handwriting stared up at me, cramped but unmistakable. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm alive, but I've had to disappear. Everything I'm about to tell you is true. 20 years ago, I made a choice that put our family in danger. I thought that danger had passed. I was wrong. 5 years ago, a man entered your life. You know him as David Miller. That is not his real name. He was sent to you deliberately to destroy me by destroying what I love most. You. 6 months ago, I discovered the truth. I've been working with federal agents, but the threat escalated. The only way to protect you and your mother was to remove myself to make them think they'd already won. David is not who you think he is. His feelings may have become real, but that doesn't make him safe. It makes him more dangerous. If you've received a text from David asking you to come home, especially one that feels wrong, do not go. They know I'm not dead. They're using him to find you. Go to Unit 20 at Lone Star Storage on South Congress. Inside, you'll find Agent Michael Carter. He'll explain everything. Go now. Every minute puts you and your mother at greater risk. I'm sorry, sorrier than you'll ever know. But everything I've done has been to protect you. Trust Carter. Trust your instincts. Dad. I read it again, my lawyer brain searching for holes. But the handwriting was Dad's. The phrasing, sorrier than you'll ever know. His guilty phrase when he'd missed my birthday or a school play. David Miller. Not his real name. 5 years together. 3 years married. I looked at my platinum wedding band catching the last daylight. Everything had been a lie. My phone buzzed, making me jump. I grabbed it without thinking. Mom, are you okay? Voicemail. Her warm Texas drawl telling me to leave a message. I'd called her, not answered. My thumb had hit her contact automatically. Mom, it's me, I said after the beep, steadying my voice. Call me back. It's urgent. I paused, unsure what was safe to say. Please. I hung up and tried again, straight to voicemail. Mom always answered, especially today, unless her phone was dead, or off, or taken. Movement in my rearview mirror. A tall figure walking through the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear, scanning cars. David. My breath caught. He was looking for me maybe 50 yards away, checking each vehicle. I slid lower, heart hammering. The Honda was generic silver, but if he got close enough to see the license plate, the law firm sticker on my back windshield. He turned toward me. 30 seconds. The back exit. The maintenance road I'd noticed earlier, some instinct telling me to keep options open. I put the car in gear, headlights off. Pulled out slowly, using other cars for cover. David's head turned at the engine sound, but 2 other vehicles were leaving toward the main exit. I went the opposite direction. David broke into a jog phone still at his ear. I hit the gas once I cleared the headstones. Branches scraped my sides. Gravel pinged underneath. Then I was through the unlocked gate onto a quiet residential street. Right then left at the next intersection, putting distance and turns between us. Only then did I flip on headlights and try to breathe. My phone rang, David's name. I let it ring. Voicemail. Immediately it rang again, and again, and again. On the 4th call, I turned it face down and focused on driving. I knew Austin's side streets, 34 years here, meant I could lose him in the grid if needed. The phone stopped. Silence. Then a text. Against every instinct, I glanced at a red light. Emma, please. I know you're confused. I can explain everything. Just come home. I love you. Another text immediately followed. We need to talk about the baby. The world tilted worse than when Vincent said the coffin was empty. The baby. I'd taken the test 3 days ago. Positive. 2 pink lines that made me cry happy tears in our bathroom while David was at work. I'd hidden it in my purse, planning to tell him after the funeral. I hadn't told anyone. Not Mom, not my best friend Sarah, not my doctor. Only me and that test knew. How did David know? The light turned green. Someone honked. I drove forward on autopilot. Our house. Had he searched my purse? No, the test was in my car's glove box wrapped in a CVS receipt. Unless he'd searched my car too. Unless he'd been searching everything looking for what? Information, leverage. Dad's letter echoed, he was sent to you deliberately to destroy me by destroying what I love most. The phone buzzed. Another call. This time I didn't look. I drove toward South Congress Avenue, toward Unit 20, toward answers that would shatter everything I thought I knew. Lone Star Storage was 10 minutes away. Behind me, somewhere in Austin's twilight, my husband was hunting me. And somehow he knew I was pregnant. The question wasn't how. The question was, how long had he been watching? And what else did he know? 30 minutes through, Austin brought me to chain link fence and orange doors. Lone Star Storage sprawled across a lot off South Congress, rows of corrugated metal units, glowing under security lights that had just flickered on in the gathering darkness. The place was quiet, most businesses on this stretch already closed for the evening. A handful of cars sat in the parking area, but I couldn't tell which belonged to customers and which to whatever was waiting for me inside. I parked near the office engine, ticking as it cooled. My hand was on the door handle when someone knocked on my window. I jumped, heart slamming into my throat. A man stood outside, early 40s, dark suit despite the Texas heat, hands visible and empty. He held up a leather credential wallet badge glinting under the streetlight. I cracked the window an inch. Emma Martinez. His voice was calm, professional. "I'm Agent Michael Carter, FBI. Your father asked me to meet you here." I didn't move. Anyone could buy a fake badge online. He said you'd need proof. Carter continued, not seeming offended by my hesitation. He told me about the time you were 8 years old and convinced him to let you adopt that 3-legged dog from the shelter. You named her Lucky. She lived another 6 years. The air left my lungs. Nobody knew about Lucky except family. We'd never posted about her online. This was before social media consumed everything. She died when I was 14, and I'd cried for a week. I opened the door and stepped out, legs unsteady. "How is he?" The question came out before I could stop it. "Alive. Waiting for you." Carter gestured toward the back of the facility. "Unit 20 is this way. I've been monitoring the perimeter since your father contacted me that you'd received the key. No one followed you here. You're sure?" "As sure as I can be." He started walking, and I fell into step beside him. "We'll know more once you're inside, and we can scan you for tracking devices." I stopped walking. Tracking devices. Carter's expression was grim. "Your father will explain. But Emma, you need to understand the people David works for are extremely sophisticated. If they wanted to monitor your movements or listen to your conversations, they'd have the technology to do it." My hand went unconsciously to my shoulder, to the spot where I'd gotten that vitamin shot 2 years ago. David had said I looked run down, that B12 would help with my energy levels. Had that been... "Come on," Carter said quietly. "Your father's been waiting 20 years to explain this to you. Let's not make him wait any longer." We walked past rows of orange doors, each numbered in black stencil. The facility was well lit, but eerily quiet, our footsteps echoing off concrete. Security cameras tracked our progress from corners and poles. Unit 20 was at the back, partially hidden from the main drive by a larger storage building. Strategic positioning, I realized. You couldn't see this unit from the entrance. I pulled out the brass key Vincent had given me. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. "Take your time," Carter said. I inserted the key. It turned smoothly, the lock clicking open. I lifted the rolling door. The space inside wasn't like any storage unit I'd ever seen. Monitors lined one wall, showing security feeds from multiple locations, the storage facility itself, but also street views I didn't immediately recognize. Maps covered another wall, Austin and surrounding areas marked with colored pins and circles. A cot sat in one corner next to a small refrigerator. File boxes were stacked neatly along the back wall, and in the center of it all, rising from a folding chair, was my father, Richard Martinez, 64 years old, the man whose funeral I'd attended this afternoon. Alive. My knees buckled. I caught myself on the door frame, but barely. The world narrowed to his face, older than I remembered, more tired, but unmistakably impossibly him. "Emma." His voice broke on my name. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was seeing. He took a step toward me, hands out like he was approaching a spooked horse. "I know this is... You're dead." The words came out strangled. "I saw you. Yesterday, at the funeral home. I kissed your forehead." That wasn't me. Dad's face twisted with guilt. That was a forensic reconstruction, a silicone dummy. The FBI has specialists who create them for witness protection cases. Same height, same build, facial prosthetics matched to my features. The funeral home was compensated generously to keep the casket partially closed and the lighting dim. Compensated by who? "The FBI," Carter said from behind me. "As part of your father's protective arrangement. Standard protocol for high-risk witness protection." I shook my head, trying to clear it. This was insane. People didn't fake their own deaths. Bodies weren't just borrowed from medical schools. The FBI didn't stage elaborate fake funerals. Except apparently they did. "I need you to sit down," Dad said, gesturing to a second folding chair. "I need to tell you things that are going to be hard to hear. Things I should have told you years ago. Mom, I managed. Where's Mom? She's not answering her phone." Dad's expression went from guilty to devastated. "That's what I need to tell you." He moved to one of the monitors, pulled up footage that looked like it had been recorded earlier. Parking lot, my parents' street, a black SUV, 2 men getting out, my mother leaving her car after the funeral, one of the men putting something over her face, a cloth, maybe chloroformed, Mom collapsing, being bundled into the SUV. The timestamp read 4:17 p.m., 3 hours and 43 minutes ago. "No." The word came out like a prayer. "No, no, no. They took her to draw you out," Dad said, voice rough. "They know the funeral was fake. They know I'm alive. And they know the only way to get to me is through you and your mother." I couldn't tear my eyes from the monitor. Mom's unconscious body disappearing into that vehicle. "Who?" I whispered. "Who are they?" Dad's face hardened. "That's a long story. One that starts 20 years ago when I was a detective for Austin PD, and I made a choice that put a very dangerous man's son in the ground." Carter stepped forward. "Emma, I know this is overwhelming, but we have a very narrow window to get your mother back safely. Your father's been working with us for months, and we have a plan, but we need you to understand exactly what we're dealing with." I looked at Dad. At his face, alive, impossibly alive, etched with 2 decades of secrets. "Tell me everything I said." Dad nodded slowly. "It starts with a man named Marcus Volkov, and it ends with your husband." I sat across from Dad in that cramped space while 15 years of secrets poured out. Carter stood by the monitors, arms crossed, watching both of us. Dad leaned forward in his folding chair, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tight his knuckles had gone white. 2009, he began. "I was a detective with Austin PD working organized crime. We'd been building a case against the Volkov family for 3 years, money laundering mostly. Millions moving through legitimate businesses, car washes, restaurants, storage facilities like this one." His eyes flicked to the concrete walls around us, and I wondered if that detail was deliberate, if Marcus Volkov had once owned places exactly like this. Marcus Volkov was the head of the operation. 60 years old then, former Soviet military, ruthless, but smart. He kept himself insulated layers of people between him and the actual crimes. We couldn't touch him. "So you went after his son," I said quietly. Dad's jaw tightened. "We went after the operation." Alexander Volkov, Marcus's oldest son, 19 years old, was running one of the fronts, a car dealership on East Riverside. We had evidence he was signing off on fake sales, washing money through vehicle purchases. We executed the warrant on a Friday morning, May 15th, 2009. Dad's voice had gone flat the way cops talk when they're recounting something they've reported dozens of times. 6 of us. I was lead detective. We announced ourselves entered through the main office. He stopped, swallowed hard. Alexander was in the back office. He had a Glock 9mm. When we came through the door, he fired first. 3 shots. 1 hit my partner in the shoulder. "You returned fire," I said. "1 shot." Dad's voice cracked. "Center mass. He died before the paramedics arrived." The unit was silent except for the hum of the monitors. "The shooting was ruled justified," Carter said from his position by the wall. "Internal Affairs investigated for 6 weeks. Every witness confirmed Alexander fired first. Your father saved his partner's life." "But Marcus didn't see it that way," I said. "Marcus Volkov lost his firstborn son." Dad's face twisted. "I understand that. I have a daughter. I know what that kind of loss does to a person." He wanted revenge. "Not right away. That's what made it so dangerous." Dad stood, started pacing in the small space. "After Alexander died, Marcus withdrew, shut down most of his operations, went underground. His younger son, David, was 21 at the time, a student at UT, clean record, no connection to the family business that we could find. My stomach dropped. David was at UT, business major. Junior year. Dad pulled a file from one of the boxes, handed it to me. A university ID photo stared up at me. David, 15 years younger, longer hair, but unmistakably him. 3 months after his brother died, David disappeared. Withdrew from school, cut ties with everyone he knew. We assumed he'd gone underground with his father. I stared at the photo. The man I'd married. 21 years old, grieving his brother, about to spend the next decade being molded into a weapon. Where did he go? Eastern Europe, Carter said. We've pieced together some of it. Moscow, Prague, Budapest. Marcus had connections from his Soviet military days. We think he was training David. Not just physical training, psychological conditioning. How to build a cover identity. How to infiltrate someone's life. How to make them trust you completely. For 12 years, I whispered. 12 years, Dad confirmed. And then 5 years ago, you walked into that coffee shop on West 6th Street. The memory hit me like a physical blow. The barista had gotten my order wrong, given me someone else's latte. David had been sitting nearby, noticed the confusion, offered to trade drinks, since mine was actually his order. We'd laughed about it, talked for 20 minutes. He'd asked for my number. It had felt like fate. That wasn't an accident, I said. Nothing about your relationship with David was an accident. Dad's voice was rough. When you two started dating, I ran a background check. David Miller, Austin native, worked in commercial real estate, clean credit, no criminal record. It all seemed legitimate. But it wasn't. The identity was perfect. Birth certificate, social security number, employment history, all real documents, all properly filed. But they were fabricated. Someone with serious resources had created an entire life history for him. When did you know? I suspected something was wrong about 3 years ago, right before your wedding. Some of the details didn't add up. David's supposed childhood home had been torn down decades before his birth year. His elementary school had no records of him. But I couldn't prove anything, and you were so happy. Dad's voice broke. I told myself I was being paranoid, that not every inconsistency means conspiracy. But you kept digging. I hired private investigators. They found more gaps, more impossibilities in David's backstory, but nothing that definitively connected him to the Volkovs. It wasn't until 8 months ago that Carter's team made the breakthrough. Carter stepped forward. We'd been tracking Marcus Volkov's financial network for years. One of our analysts noticed payments to a document forger in San Antonio. When we pressured the forger, he gave up a client, David Miller. From there, we pulled surveillance footage, ran facial recognition against David Volkov's old photos. But we made a critical error. Carter admitted, his jaw tight. We focused our surveillance on David, specifically his movements, his communications, his daily patterns. We assumed if Marcus made a move, it would be through David. We didn't realize Marcus had a separate operational team, enforcers. David doesn't even know about legacy contacts from the Soviet era who answer only to Marcus directly. Dad's face twisted with guilt. That's how they got to Linda. The men who took her weren't part of David's network. They were Marcus's direct operatives, bypassing David entirely. By the time our surveillance flagged the black SUVs, your mother was already gone. 98% match, Dad said. David Miller and David Volkov are the same person. The world tilted again. I'd thought I'd absorbed the shock, but the proof, the certainty made it real in a way the letter hadn't. Why didn't you tell me 8 months ago when you knew? Because we didn't know his orders. Dad crouched in front of my chair, forced me to meet his eyes. Was he under orders to kill you, to kidnap you, to destroy your life slowly from the inside? We didn't know, and if we confronted him, if we arrested him, Marcus would just send someone else. Someone we wouldn't see coming. So you watched, I said bitterly. You let me keep living with him, sleeping next to him. We had agents watching your house around the clock, Carter interrupted, monitoring phone lines, tracking David's movements. The moment he made a move toward violence, we were ready to intervene. But he never did, Dad said softly. For 8 months, David went to work, came home, had dinner with you. Like a normal husband, that's what scared me most. Why? Because Marcus Volkov is patient. He spent 12 years preparing David for this. He's not going to rush the payoff. Dad's hands were shaking. He wants me to suffer the way he suffered. He wants me to watch my daughter destroyed from the inside, betrayed by someone she loves, carrying the child of the man who's going to... He couldn't finish the sentence. I stood up so fast the chair tipped over. The baby! How does David know about the baby? Dad and Carter exchanged a look. We think your home is bugged, Carter said. Audio surveillance, possibly video, maybe a tracker on your person. We'll know more once we scan you properly. My hand went to my shoulder again to that injection site. Marcus decided to kill my daughter from the inside, Dad said, voice breaking completely, using my son-in-law. Carter pulled up files documenting 5 years of my life in cold detail. One of the monitors came alive with folders organized by year. Photos, dates, locations. My entire relationship with David laid out like evidence at trial, which I suppose it was. This is what we've compiled over the past 8 months, Carter said, clicking through images. Most of it came from surveillance we initiated once we identified David, but some of it, the early stuff, came from Volkov's own records. Marcus was documenting it, I said numbly. He wanted proof, wanted to be able to show your father exactly how he'd orchestrated your destruction. Carter's voice was clinical, but I caught the anger underneath. This was never just about killing you, Emma. It was about humiliation, about making Richard watch helplessly while his daughter fell in love with the enemy. The first photo showed the coffee shop on West 6th Street. David and me laughing over the switched drinks. The timestamp read 5 years, 2 months, and 6 days ago. That wasn't an accident, Carter said. The barista was paid $500 to deliberately mix up your order. David was positioned at that specific table because Marcus's people had been tracking your routine for 6 weeks. They knew you came here every Tuesday morning before court. My stomach turned. 6 weeks. They wanted the meeting to seem organic, natural. Carter clicked to the next image, a bookstore. David and me reaching for the same book, some thriller I couldn't even remember now. 2 weeks later, the book was planted. David had a copy at home. He'd never read it. Click, a restaurant. David on one knee, me crying happy tears, ring box open. The proposal, I whispered, funded by Marcus Volkov. That ring cost $14,000, purchased with laundered money from a car dealership in Dallas. Every moment I'd treasured, every memory I'd held close tainted, fabricated, part of a 15-year revenge plot. Your home has been under audio surveillance for approximately 2 years, Carter continued. We believe the bugs were installed during a weekend when you were visiting your parents, and David stayed home alone claiming he had work. A team came in professional installation. Devices in the bedroom, living room, home office. We didn't detect the installation at the time, Carter added. We weren't monitoring David yet. This was before we confirmed his identity. Once we started surveillance 8 months ago, we focused on his external movements and communications. The home bugs were passive devices only transmitting when triggered by keywords. They didn't generate the kind of signal traffic that would flag our monitoring systems until it was too late. They've been listening. My voice didn't sound like mine. For 2 years. Not constantly. The devices are trigger activated. Certain keywords, your father's name, FBI, police pregnancy, testify. When those words are spoken, the device records a 60-second clip and transmits it via encrypted cellular signal. That's how David knew about the baby. I'd taken the test in our bathroom, whispered positive to myself while staring at those 2 pink lines. The device had heard me. Your wedding, Dad said quietly from behind me. He'd been silent through most of this, letting Carter present the evidence. Show her the wedding. Carter pulled up a photo from 3 years ago. Me in my white dress, radiant, surrounded by guests. 12 people in this photo have connections to Marcus Volkov's organization. Carter said, highlighting faces one by one with a red circle. They're listed as David's co-workers, college friends, distant cousins. In reality, they're money launderers, enforcers, and one suspected murderer. I danced with these people, hugged them, sent them thank you cards. The worst part, Carter said, pulling up a medical record, is this. A clinic I didn't recognize. My name at the top. Date 2 years, 1 month ago. Vitamin B12 injection. I said, my hand going automatically to my left shoulder. David said I looked run down, insisted I was anemic, that the injection would help with energy levels. You remember the clinic? Some urgent care place. David made the appointment, drove me there. The memory felt contaminated now. The nurse barely looked at me. Quick injection, in and out in 10 minutes. That clinic is owned by a shell company traced back to Volkov interests, Carter said. The nurse was paid $20,000. He reached into a case and pulled out a handheld device that looked like a small metal detector. We need to scan you. If I'm right about what that injection actually was. He didn't finish the sentence. I stood, pulled off my jacket, pushed the collar of my shirt aside to expose my left shoulder. The injection site had healed within a week, leaving no mark. I'd forgotten about it entirely within a month. Carter ran the scanner slowly over my shoulder. For a moment, nothing. Then it beeped. High-pitched, insistent. His face went grim. Got it. Got what? He pulled up an imaging screen on another monitor. A small object, maybe the size of a grain of rice, showed up as a bright spot beneath my skin, about an inch deep, right where the injection had gone in. Bio-tracker, Carter said. Military grade. GPS positioning accurate to within 3 feet plus audio transmission capability. The casing is ceramic so it doesn't set off metal detectors. It's powered by thermoelectric generation harvests, energy from your body heat. Battery life is essentially indefinite as long as you're alive. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. They put a tracking device in my body. 2 years ago. Dad said, voice breaking. For 2 years, they've known everywhere you've gone, everyone you've talked to, every conversation you've had in private. Bile rose in my throat. I barely made it to the trash can in the corner before I vomited my body, rejecting the violation more forcefully than my mind could process. Someone Dad probably pulled my hair back. A bottle of water appeared. I rinsed, rinsed again. Every intimate moment with David. Every shower, every doctor's appointment, every late-night conversation with my best friend. They'd been listening, tracking, recording. I'd been wearing a surveillance device inside my own body for 2 years. We can remove it, Carter said. There's a surgeon we work with 15 minutes from here. Local anesthetic 5-minute procedure, no scarring. I straightened up, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. Not yet. Both men stared at me. If you remove it, they'll know something's wrong. I said, my lawyer brain finally kicking back in. Right now, David thinks I went home or to my mom's or somewhere predictable. If the tracker suddenly goes dark, Marcus will know I'm with the FBI. Emma. Show me everything. I interrupted, turning back to Carter. Every file, every recording, every photo. If I'm going to destroy him, I need to know exactly who I married. Carter and Dad exchanged a look. You're not destroying anyone, Dad said. You're going somewhere safe while Carter and his team handle no. My voice came out harder than I intended. Marcus took 5 years of my life. He put a device inside my body. He's holding Mom hostage. I met Dad's eyes. I'm not hiding, I'm fighting. The monitors glowed behind us, 5 years of lies frozen on screens. Show me everything, I repeated. And after a long moment, Carter nodded and opened another file. When my phone rang with Mom's face on the screen, everyone in Unit 20 went silent. I'd left it face down on the table while Carter pulled up surveillance logs and financial records. We'd been going through David's fabricated life for the past 45 minutes, each new detail another knife in my gut. Then the phone buzzed, vibrating against metal with a sound that made us all freeze. Mom's contact photo glowed up at me, the one from last Christmas, her laughing in front of the tree we'd decorated together. Don't answer it, Dad said immediately, but Carter held up a hand. Wait, this could be useful. He pulled a cable from his equipment case, connected it to his laptop. Emma, answer it. Put it on speaker, but let me record and analyze first. My hand shook as I reached for the phone. Video call, not just voice. I swiped to accept, tilted the screen so Carter's camera could capture it, and my mother's face filled the display. She was smiling. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Mom had just attended Dad's funeral this afternoon. She'd been destroyed leaning on my aunt for support. She shouldn't be smiling. Emma, sweetheart. Mom's voice was warm, relieved. Thank God, I've been trying to reach you for hours. Mom, my voice came out strangled. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine, honey. I'm at Margaret's house, our neighbor 3 doors down. After the funeral, I just couldn't bear being alone in that house, so Margaret insisted I come stay with her for the night. Mom's smile widened. But David's been calling me worried sick about you. He said you left the cemetery without telling anyone where you were going. Carter's fingers flew across his keyboard algorithms running analysis on the video feed. Why didn't you answer your phone earlier? I asked, watching her face carefully. I called you right after the funeral. Oh, honey, my phone died. You know how I am with charging it. Margaret let me borrow hers once we got back here. Mom leaned closer to the camera. Emma, please just go home. David loves you so much. Whatever's going on, whatever you two fought about, just go home and talk to him. We didn't fight, I said slowly. Well, he seems to think you're upset about something. He's at home waiting for you right now. Mom's expression turned pleading. Just go home, sweetheart. Go to David. Everything will be okay. David, not your husband. Not that husband of yours. The way she always said it with gentle teasing affection. Just David. By his first name. Mom had never not once in 5 years called him David to my face. Carter's screen flashed a warning, but I was already testing. Mom. I said, keeping my voice steady, do you remember what we had for breakfast yesterday before the funeral? A pause. Less than a second, but it was there. Of course, honey. Those pancakes you made were delicious. My blood turned to ice. We hadn't had breakfast together yesterday. I'd been at my own house alone, too nauseous with grief to eat anything. Mom had been at her house with Dad's sister. There had been no pancakes. Mom, what was I wearing? Another microsecond pause. Your black dress, sweetheart. The one with the pearl buttons. I'd worn a navy blue suit, no pearls. Carter's laptop screen showed a red box around Mom's face. Text scrolling beside it. Deepfake detected. Facial mapping analysis. 94% AI-generated voice synthesis. High probability. Micro expressions absent recommendation. Video not authentic. I stared at the screen at my mother's face, smiling and urging me to go home to David, and felt reality shift again. Emma. The fake mom tilted her head. Honey, are you there? The connection seems... I hung up. The phone clattered onto the table. I couldn't hold it anymore. My hands were shaking too badly. That wasn't her, I whispered. That wasn't my mother. No, Carter said, voice grim. He was typing rapidly running traces. That was an AI-generated deepfake, probably created from photos and videos, harvested from your social media family videos, any digital record they could find. The technology's gotten sophisticated enough that they can generate real-time responses, make it interactive. The voice synthesis is nearly perfect. Nearly, Dad said. But not quite. They couldn't fake the details, couldn't know about breakfast, about what you wore. They were trying to lure you home. Carter continued, still focused on his screen. Get you back to your house where David's waiting, where they control the environment. He stopped typing. Went very still. What? I asked. Carter looked up and his face had gone pale in the blue glow of the monitors. The call originated from your home address, Emma. He turned the laptop toward me, showing a map with a red pin dropped on my street, my house number. It came from inside your house. They're not just watching anymore. They're there. Right now. The room spun. Marcus Volkov's people were in my home. The house where David and I had lived for 2 years, where we'd cooked dinners and watched movies and made love and talked about having children, where I'd taken that pregnancy test 3 days ago and whispered positive to myself in the bathroom. They were there now in that space, using technology to wear my mother's face like a mask and try to trick me into walking into a trap. How many? I managed. Carter pulled up another feed. Thermal imaging from a traffic camera half a block away shows at least 3 heat signatures inside the residence. Could be more in areas the camera can't reach. 3 armed men. Dad said, waiting for you to come home. I thought about walking through that door unsuspecting, calling out for David, maybe noticing something wrong, maybe not. Would they have jumped me immediately? Or would David have tried to play it cool, get me comfortable first? How exactly had Marcus planned for me to die? We need to move, Carter said, already pulling equipment together. If they're at your house and you're not answering the deepfake's instructions, they'll realize you're onto them. They might relocate change plans. Or come looking for me here. I finished. The storage facility's secure, but we can't take chances. Carter looked at Dad. Richard grabbed the go bag. Emma, we need to relocate you to a federal safe house. Now. But I was staring at my phone at the dark screen where my mother's stolen face had been moments ago. They'd taken Mom's image, her voice, her mannerisms, turned her into a puppet, used her to try to lead me to slaughter. And somewhere, the real Linda Martinez was still being held captive. No, I said. Both men looked at me. I'm not running. I stood up, forcing my legs to steady. They're in my house. They've got Mom, and David's out there somewhere, probably coordinating all of this. I met Carter's eyes. You said you had a plan to get Mom back. I want to hear it. Emma. They tried to use my mother's face to kill me. I said, voice harder than I'd ever heard it. I want to hear the plan, now. After a long moment, Carter nodded. All right, he said, but you're not going to like it. Dad pulled up a photograph that made everything more complicated. Before we discuss the plan, he said quietly, you need to understand something about David, about who he was before Marcus destroyed him. The image filled the monitor. A young man, maybe 19, smiling at the camera. Dark hair, strong jaw, and eyes that I recognized immediately because I'd looked into them 1,000 times across dinner tables and in morning light. Alexander Volkov, David's older brother. He looks like him, I whispered. Same eyes, Dad confirmed. Same smile when David actually smiles. Alexander was the firstborn, Marcus's pride. Carter pulled up a second image. Alexander in a UT Longhorns jersey, arm around a young woman at a football game. He looked happy, normal, like any college student. Business major junior year, Dad said. Girlfriend named Sarah. Volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. His voice went hollow. I didn't know any of that when I shot him. I just knew he had a gun and my partner was bleeding. Tell me exactly what happened, I said. Not the police report version, the real version. Dad was quiet for a long moment. May 15th, 2009, 7:30 in the morning. We hit the car dealership with a warrant, 6 officers. I was lead detective. We announced ourselves, went through the front entrance. He stared at Alexander's photo. Alexander was in the back office. When we came through that door, he already had his Glock out. I shouted for him to drop it. He fired instead. 3 shots. Carter added. One hit Detective Marcus Webb in the shoulder. The others went wide. I returned fire. 1 shot. Dad's hands were shaking. Center mass. He went down. We called paramedics, immediately tried to stop the bleeding, but the round had hit his aorta. He died in that office before the ambulance arrived. The room was silent except for the hum of equipment. He was 19 years old, Dad said. Scared kid playing gangster for his father. If he dropped the gun, he'd be alive. He'd be 34 now, maybe married, maybe with kids. The same age as me, the same age David would be. Marcus blamed you, I said. Marcus blamed me for doing my job. Internal Affairs investigated for 6 weeks. Every witness confirmed Alexander fired first. The shooting was ruled justified. But to Marcus, Dad's voice broke. To Marcus, I murdered his son. Carter stepped forward. After Alexander died, David disappeared. He was 21 UT student, clean record. We thought he'd gone underground with his father. We were wrong. Marcus sent him to Europe. For 12 years, I said, remembering from earlier. 12 years of training, Carter confirmed. We've pieced together some of it from intelligence sources. Moscow, Prague, Budapest. Marcus had old Soviet military connections. We think he was conditioning David, not just physical combat training, psychological programming. How to build a cover identity, how to infiltrate someone's life, how to make them trust you absolutely. How to become a weapon, Dad said quietly. The weight of it hit me. David, at 21, grieving his brother, being molded by his father into an instrument of revenge for 12 years, from a college student to a trained operative, all in service of Marcus's vendetta. But here's what you need to understand, Carter said, pulling up another file. In the 6 months since we confirmed David's identity, we've been watching him closely. And Emma David has had at least 3 clear opportunities to kill you. Opportunities where you were vulnerable alone and he could have made it look like an accident. My stomach dropped. 3. 4 weeks ago, you went jogging at Zilker Park at 6 a.m. alone. David knew your route. He could have followed, attacked you on an isolated trail, made it look like a random assault. Carter clicked to another document. 2 months ago, your car's brake line developed a slow leak. You took it to the mechanic. We pulled the security footage. David had been in the garage the night before with tools. He could have cut that line completely. Instead, he only damaged it enough that you'd notice and get it repaired. And 3 months ago, Dad added, voice rough, you had that stomach flu. David made you soup, gave you medication. Carter's team tested the medication bottles afterward. Nothing. If he'd wanted to poison you, that was his chance. I stared at them. He had orders to kill me, and he didn't. 3 times, Carter confirmed. Maybe more that we didn't catch. David has been living with you for 5 years, married to you for 3. He's had countless opportunities, but he hasn't taken them. Why? We don't know for certain, Carter admitted, but we have a theory. He pulled up an audio file. This is from 3 years ago. We'd placed a wire on one of Marcus's associates, caught this conversation between Marcus and David. He hit play. Marcus's voice filled the unit, cold and commanding, with a thick Eastern European accent. You've been in position for 2 years. When do you complete your assignment? A pause. Then David's voice, younger but unmistakable. Soon. I need more time to... Time. Marcus's voice turned vicious. I gave you 12 years. I made you into what you are, and you repay me with hesitation. She's not what you said she would be. She's Richard Martinez's daughter. That's all that matters. You will make him watch her die the way I watched Alexander die. Slowly, painfully. You will destroy everything she loves, everyone she trusts, and then you will kill her while Richard watches. A pause. Or you're no son of mine. The audio ended. I couldn't breathe. The casual cruelty in Marcus's voice, the way he'd reduced me to a target, a piece in his revenge game. And David's voice, uncertain, conflicted. That was 3 years ago, Dad said softly, right around the time David proposed to you. He's been stalling, I realized. For 3 years, he's been stalling his own father. Which means one of 2 things, Carter said. Either David is playing an even longer game or he actually fell in love with me. I finished. The idea should have been comforting. Instead, it made everything worse. Because even if David loved me, he'd still lied, still deceived me, still married me under his father's orders. And now Mom was kidnapped and we were here, and David was out there somewhere, torn between his father's ultimatum and whatever feelings he'd developed. That doesn't make him safe, Dad said, reading my face. It makes him more dangerous. A conflicted operative is unpredictable. I know, I said. But as I looked at Alexander's photo, that young face, those eyes that David had inherited, I couldn't help but see the tragedy of it. 2 brothers. One dead at 19 because he'd pulled a trigger in fear. The other turned into a weapon groomed for revenge, trapped between love and duty. Marcus Volkov had destroyed both his sons, and now he was trying to destroy me. The storage unit transformed into a war room as FBI tactical team arrived. 6 agents in dark tactical vests filed through the door Carter had opened, carrying equipment cases and laptops. Within minutes, the small space was crammed with bodies, the air thick with tension, and the crackle of radio communications. Carter pulled up a large monitor showing thermal imaging of a building. 2 heat signatures glowed orange against the blue background. "Your mother is here," he said, pointing to the larger signature. "Abandoned meatpacking plant on East Riverside. We've had eyes on the location for the past 2 hours." I leaned forward, studying the image. "Just one person with her—" "No." Carter's jaw tightened. "Look at the second signature. The smaller orange shape was maybe half the size of the first, not an adult." My breath caught. "That's a child." "Yes." "What child?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Whose child is in there with my mother?" Carter pulled up another document on a laptop. A birth certificate. Texas Department of State Health Services. Name Liam Alexander Volkov. Date of birth: March 12th, 2016. Mother Sophia Grace Miller. Father David Marcus Volkov. The world stopped. David had a son, 7 years old, and I'd never known. "Sophia Miller died 3 years ago," Carter said quietly. "Car accident. Single vehicle collision on a rural road outside San Antonio. She lost control, went into a ravine. The investigation ruled it accidental, but Marcus killed her," Dad finished. "Once David was embedded with Emma, Sophia became a liability." I couldn't stop staring at the birth certificate. Liam Alexander Volkov, the middle name Alexander, after David's dead brother. A memory surfaced. 2 weeks ago. David bringing a quiet 7-year-old boy to our house for dinner. "This is Liam," David had said, ruffling the kid's hair. "My buddy Tom's son, you know Tom from the commercial real estate office. He had an emergency listing, asked if we could watch Liam for the evening." I'd hesitated. David had mentioned a Tom maybe once or twice over the years, but I'd never met him. "Sure," I'd said, smiling at the quiet boy. "Of course." I'd made macaroni and cheese. We'd played Uno at the kitchen table. Liam had been shy at first, then warmed up laughing when I dramatically groaned about drawing 4 cards. He'd called me Miss Emma and thanked me for dinner with careful politeness before David took him home. Later that night, I'd asked David, "When do I get to meet this mysterious Tom?" David had gone very still for just a moment, so brief I'd almost missed it. "He travels a lot, works with international clients. I'll introduce you sometime." I'd let it drop. Now I understood why. That was David's son, his actual son, and I'd fed him, played with him, completely unaware. "David brought him to your house 2 weeks ago," Carter said, confirming what I was realizing. "We have the surveillance footage. It was the only time in 5 years David ever brought his personal life into contact with his assignment. We think he was trying to—" He paused. "We think he was hoping you'd bond with Liam, that if Marcus ever forced his hand, you'd fight to protect the child." "Where has Liam been all this time?" I asked. "If Sophia's been dead for 3 years, with a nanny in a house Marcus owns in Georgetown, isolated, homeschooled. David visits twice a week. The nanny reported him missing this morning right around the time of your father's funeral. Marcus had taken a 7-year-old child, his own grandson. Why—" My voice was barely above a whisper. "Why would Marcus take his own grandson hostage?" "Insurance," Carter said grimly, "to keep David in line. Marcus knows David's been stalling missing opportunities. The deep fake call the men at your house, those were Marcus's moves, not David's. Marcus is forcing the confrontation because he doesn't trust his son anymore." He pulled up another image. A blueprint of the meatpacking plant. Red X's marked positions. "We believe Marcus has given David an ultimatum. Kill you and Richard by dawn, 6 a.m., 8 hours from now, or Marcus kills Liam." Carter met my eyes. "David's own father is threatening to murder his 7-year-old son unless David murders his wife." The cruelty was breathtaking. Marcus had destroyed Alexander, groomed David, killed Sophia, and now he was using an innocent child as leverage in his revenge. "So what's the plan?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. "We go in before dawn," Carter said. 4 a.m. FBI tactical team breaches the plant, secures your mother, and the child neutralizes any hostiles. But we need a distraction to draw Marcus's people away from the hostages first. "A distraction," I repeated. Dad spoke up. "I'll go. I'll tell Marcus I'm turning myself in, that I want to trade myself for Linda. That'll pull his attention while the team moves into position." "No." The word came out flat definitive. Everyone looked at me. "If you go, Dad Marcus kills you the second you walk through that door. Then he kills Mom out of spite." I stood up, forcing my legs steady. "It has to be me. Emma, absolutely not. Marcus wants you to suffer." I cut Dad off. "He wants you to watch me die. If I walk in there, surrender myself, he'll keep me alive long enough to make sure you see it. That gives Carter's team time to breach." "You're talking about using yourself as bait," Carter said. "I'm talking about being the only option that buys us time." I looked at Dad. "You go in, you're dead in 30 seconds. I go in, Marcus drags it out, gloats, makes it dramatic. And while he's busy with his revenge theater FB, I gets Mom and Liam out." "And then what?" Dad's voice cracked. "Marcus kills you anyway. Then FBI shoots Marcus before he gets the chance," I said with more confidence than I felt. Carter and Dad exchanged a long look. "There's one more variable," Carter said finally. "David. We don't know where he is right now. He's not at your house with Marcus's men. He's not at the plant with the hostages. He's somewhere in between, and we don't know what he'll do when this goes down." "That's why I need to talk to him," I said. "Before we do anything else, I need to know if David's going to help us or kill us, and there's only one way to find out." I pulled out my phone, the one that had stayed silent for hours. The one David had been calling desperately before we turned it to silent. I looked at Carter. "You can trace this, right? If I call him, you can find where he is." "Within 30 seconds, Carter confirmed. "Then I'm calling him." I looked at Dad, at his face etched with fear and helplessness. "I need to know if Marcus destroyed David completely or if there's something left of the man I married. And if he's completely destroyed," Dad asked quietly, "then I'll know I'm walking into that plant alone," I said. "But at least I'll know." I pulled up David's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. After 5 years of marriage, 5 years of lies and surveillance and engineered love, I was finally going to have an honest conversation with my husband. I pressed call. My thumb was a millimeter from David's name when Carter's hand shot out and stopped me. "Wait!" His voice was urgent. "The tracker's still active. If you call him now, Marcus hears everything through the audio feed. Every word of this conversation, our entire plan, he'll know." I stared at the phone, then at my shoulder where that thing had been buried for 2 years. "We have to remove it," Carter said. "Now, before you make that call." Agent Elena Torres stepped forward, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing blue medical gloves. She'd arrived with the tactical team, but I'd barely registered her presence until now. "I'm the team's field medic," she said, her voice calm and professional. "I can extract the device here. It's a simple procedure, 5 minutes, local anesthetic. You won't feel much." How long does the anesthetic take to kick in?" I asked. 2 minutes for the injection, another 3 for it to fully numb. We don't have 5 minutes." I looked at Carter. "How far away are those vehicles you were worried about?" His face tightened. "We don't know for certain that. How far? If Marcus is mobilizing a response team, and if they're coming from the same location as the men at your house, approximately 15 to 20 minutes. Then we don't have time for anesthetic." I pulled off my jacket, pushed my shirt collar aside to expose my left shoulder. "Just cut it out. Emma, that's not necessary." "Do it now," I interrupted Torres, "or I'm calling David with the tracker still in and Marcus hears everything anyway." Torres looked at Carter. He nodded. She laid out sterile instruments on a metal tray. Scalpel, forceps, gauze, antiseptic. The efficiency of her movements was somehow more terrifying than the blade itself. "Dad," I said, my voice harder than I'd ever heard it. Come here, stand where you can see. He moved closer reluctantly, face already pale. I want you to watch this, I told him. I want you to see what your choices cost. Not in the abstract, not in theory. I want you to witness what they've done to me. Emma, watch. Torres swabbed my shoulder with cold antiseptic. The chemical smell burned my nostrils. This is going to hurt, she said quietly. The chip's about an inch deep right beneath the muscle layer. I'll be as quick as I can, but there's no way around the pain. Just do it. The scalpel bit into my skin. I'd thought I was prepared. I wasn't. The pain was sharp and immediate and wrong in a way that made my vision blur. This wasn't accidental injury. This was someone deliberately cutting into my body to remove a foreign object that never should have been there. Dad made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Keep watching, I gritted out through clenched teeth. Torres worked quickly, her hands steady. I felt pressure pulling, the sensation of something moving under my skin that shouldn't move. Warm blood ran down my arm. Almost there, Torres murmured. Then a small sound metal on ceramic as the forceps closed around the chip. Got it. She pulled it free and I finally looked down. A grain of rice, smaller than my pinky fingernail. Ceramic casing, dark blue and innocuous looking, now stained with my blood. 2 years. That thing had been inside me for 2 years. Torres pressed gauze against the incision, applied pressure. Shallow cut, clean extraction. No major vessels hit. You'll need stitches eventually, but this'll hold for now. She wrapped my shoulder quickly with medical tape, handed me my jacket. When I pulled it on, pain flared bright and immediate. Carter held up the chip with forceps, examining it under a magnifying lens. Military-grade biotracker. GPS accurate to 3 feet plus burst transmission audio. See this. He pointed to a tiny component. Voice-activated recording. Trigger words, your name. FBI, David Marcus. Key phrases. Every time you said one, it recorded 60 seconds and transmitted via encrypted cellular. For 2 years, I said. For 2 years, he confirmed. That's how Marcus knew about the pregnancy, how he knew about our investigation, how he knew everything. The weight of that violation settled over me like a shroud. Every private conversation, every intimate moment, every time I'd whispered David's name in the dark, every time I'd talked to Dad about work, every casual mention of FBI cases I was defending, recorded, transmitted, analyzed. Alarms suddenly blared from Carter's laptop. Security perimeter, one of the tactical agents said, pointing at a monitor showing the storage facility's entrance. 3 SUVs approaching, black no plates visible. 2 minutes out. They're here, Carter said grimly. Marcus heard everything we said in this unit. He knows we're FBI, knows we have a plan, knows Emma's cooperating with us. He's sending a team to eliminate the threat. The unit erupted into controlled chaos. Tactical agents checking weapons, pulling on helmets, positioning at the door. We need to evacuate, Carter said. Separate vehicles, different routes. Emma, you're coming with... No. I picked up the tracker chip from where Torres had set it on the tray, blood and all. Held it up. I'm keeping this. Everyone stopped. Emma, that's evidence. It's a weapon, I corrected. Marcus thinks it's still in my body. He thinks he can still track me, still listen to me. That gives us an advantage. Or it gets you killed, Dad said, his voice breaking. Emma, please, you've already been through enough. This choice is mine. I interrupted, closing my fist around the chip. The blood made it slippery, but I held tight. Not yours. Not the FBI's. Mine. I looked at Carter. I'm going to that meatpacking plant. Tonight. And I'm taking this with me so Marcus thinks he knows exactly where I am and what I'm saying. That's insane, Dad said. If you go there with or without that chip, Marcus will gloat, I said. He'll want to make a show of it, want to make you watch. That's what you said, right? He wants you to suffer. I met Dad's eyes. So let's give him exactly what he wants. Me walking in alone, supposedly tracked, supposedly defeated. And while he's busy enjoying his revenge, your FBI team gets Mom and Liam out. Carter looked at me for a long moment. You understand that even with the element of surprise, even with tactical advantage, there's a high probability you don't survive this. I understand. And you're still volunteering. I'm not volunteering, I corrected. I'm choosing. There's a difference. The alarms were still blaring. The SUVs would be here in less than a minute. We need to move, one of the agents said. Now. I held up my phone, David's contact still on the screen, and looked at Carter. Call him, I said. Right now, before those vehicles get here. I need to know if he's going to help me or kill me. Carter grabbed a portable tracking unit, nodded. I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, David answered. Emma. His voice was raw, desperate. Emma, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I know you know. I know you know everything. Everyone in Unit 20 fell silent as David's voice filled the speakers. Carter had patched the call through the tactical team's equipment, amplifying it so everyone could hear. 6 FBI, agents, my father and me, all listening to my husband's desperate breathing on the other end of the line. Emma. He said my name like a prayer. Where are you? Please tell me you're safe. I forced my voice cold clinical. I'm somewhere you can't find me, and I know everything, David. I know about Marcus. I know about Alexander. I know what you were sent to do. A long pause. Then, I know you do. I've known since the moment you left the cemetery without me. The tracker stopped transmitting your conversations an hour ago. They cut it out, didn't they? So he'd been monitoring, too. Or Marcus had been monitoring through him. Tell me about Liam, I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was breaking. Your 7-year-old son. The one you introduced as your buddy Tom's kid 2 weeks ago. David's breath hitched. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. I brought him to you because I was trying to get him out. I thought if you met him, if you loved him the way I knew you would, then when everything fell apart, you'd fight to save him. When everything fell apart, I repeated. You mean when you finally killed me, when I finally found a way to protect both of you? His voice cracked completely. Emma, I couldn't. For 6 months, I've been trying to find a way out of this. 6 months of missed opportunities, of stalling, of lying to Marcus, that I needed more time, that the moment wasn't right. And he knew. He knew I was compromised. Because you fell in love with me, I said quietly. Yes. No hesitation. God help me, yes. It was supposed to be an act. Get close to you, make you trust me, wait for Marcus's signal. But somewhere in the first year, I don't even know when exactly it stopped being an act. And by the time we got married, I was in too deep to walk away, but too much of a coward to tell you the truth. I heard something in the background, a child's voice crying softly. Is that Liam? I asked. Yes. David's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Marcus has him and your mother, at the plant. He's making me watch via video feed while he holds a gun to my son's head. My stomach turned to ice. Where are you? It doesn't matter. I'm not there physically, but Marcus made sure I see everything. Every time Liam cries for me, every time he asks why Papa isn't coming. His voice broke again. Marcus gave me an ultimatum. Kill you and your father before dawn, or he kills Liam. My father is willing to murder his own grandson to force my hand. I believed him. Everything in his voice, the terror, the helplessness, the desperation was real. This wasn't the smooth, confident David I'd known for 5 years. This was someone stripped bare, a man watching his father threaten to execute his child. David, I said carefully, you said you've been trying to find a way out for 6 months. What changed? Why 6 months ago, specifically? Another pause. Then, that's when your father's FBI contact found me. When Agent Carter pulled me aside after one of your court cases and told me he knew exactly who I was. A bitter laugh. I thought he was going to arrest me. Instead, he offered me a deal. Help them take down Marcus, testify against the organization, and I'd get witness protection. A new life for me and Liam away from all of this. I looked at Carter. He nodded confirmation. But you didn't take it, I said. I couldn't. Because taking that deal meant admitting to you what I'd done. Meant watching you look at me the way you're probably looking at your phone right now like I'm a monster. And I couldn't face that. So I kept stalling, kept trying to find some impossible third option where I could save Liam, protect you, and not lose you all at once. There is no third option, I said. I know that now. His voice was hollow. There never was. And now Marcus has forced the confrontation, and I'm out of time and I have to choose between the woman I love and the son I've already failed. In the background, Marcus's voice cut through. David, are you still on that phone? I have to go, David said quickly. Emma, please, wherever you are, stay there. Don't come home. Don't go to the plant. Marcus will kill you the second you walk through that door. What if I want to come? I asked. What if I'm willing to trade myself for Mom and Liam? No. The word came out fierce, desperate. No, Emma, you can't. Meatpacking plant on East Riverside. I said, my voice steady. 4 a.m. Tell Marcus I'm coming alone. Tell him I want to make a deal. Emma, no, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I looked at Dad, at Carter, at the tactical team assembled around me. Tell him I'll trade myself for Mom and Liam. Me for them. That's what he really wants anyway, right? Richard Martinez's daughter walking in to die while he watches. You're walking into a death trap. Then I guess I'd better have a good plan, I said. Marcus's voice in the background louder now. David, hang up that phone, now. I have to go, David whispered. Emma, 4 a.m., I repeated. Don't be late. The line went dead. Silence filled Unit 20, everyone staring at me. Carter spoke first, his voice tight with anger. You just painted a target on your back. You told Marcus exactly when and where to expect you, and you promised to come alone. You've given him everything he wants. Good, I said, setting down the phone. That's exactly what I wanted to do. This isn't a game. I know it's not a game, I interrupted. It's a trap. I'm the bait. And while Marcus is busy with me, your team gets Mom and Liam out. That's the plan, isn't it? That's what you were going to suggest before I took control of it. Carter's jaw worked. He looked at Dad, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. She's right, one of the tactical agents said quietly. If we're going in anyway, having Marcus focused on a known entry point gives us tactical advantage. She's not tactical advantage, Dad said, his voice breaking. She's my daughter. And Mom is your wife, I said. And Liam is a 7-year-old boy who doesn't deserve any of this. We're out of good options, Dad. We're down to choosing which bad option kills the fewest people. I looked at Carter. So tell me, what happens at 4 a.m.? After a long moment, he nodded slowly. All right, he said, but you're going to follow my instructions to the letter. One deviation, one moment of heroics, and people die. Understood. Understood. He pulled up a blueprint of the meatpacking plant on the monitor. Here's how we're going to save your mother, he said, and hopefully keep you alive in the process. 4 hours until the meet, and Carter's tactical team gathered around blueprints spread across the folding table. 6 agents in dark tactical gear, Dad standing rigid at the edge, and me still wearing the blood-stained blouse from the funeral wire transmitter taped between my ribs. Trying not to think about the baby growing inside me. East Riverside Meatpacking, built 1987. Carter said, tapping the blueprint with a gloved finger. Single-story industrial steel frame, limited exits. Marcus chose it for a reason, isolated hard to breach quietly. The schematic showed a maze loading bay processing floor freezer units catwalks overhead. Red X marked the center where Mom and Liam were being held. Emma goes in alone, Carter continued. Wired for audio and GPS. Your job is simple. Keep them talking for 20 minutes. That gives us time to position snipers on the roof entry teams at loading bay and south wall. What if Marcus sweeps her for wires? One agent asked. Carter's jaw tightened. The transmitter's military-grade ceramic casing body heat powered. It'll pass a handheld scan. If they strip search her... He looked at me. You hit the panic button. I nodded, though my stomach turned to ice. Sergeant Rodriguez Carter gestured to the sniper, late 30s, shaved head hands, steady as stone. You'll have eyes on David Volkov through thermal from the northwest rooftop. Rules of engagement. Rodriguez's voice was flat. If he raises a weapon toward the principal, I fire. No, the word ripped out of me. David won't hurt me. Carter turned and his expression was almost pitying. Ms. Martinez, David Volkov spent 5 years earning your trust. He knows your favorite coffee, your childhood fears the way you sleep. That doesn't make him safe. It makes him the most dangerous man in that building. The truth of it hit like a fist. I'd told David everything. He knew exactly how to break me. Emma. Dad stepped forward, his voice cracking. Let me go instead. Marcus wants me. This whole thing is about me. I'll trade myself for your mother and the boy. I met his eyes. No, sweetheart. Marcus wants you to watch me die, Dad. That's his revenge, making you live with it the way he's lived with Alexander's death for 15 years. Me walking in there alone. That's the one thing he won't expect. Carter nodded slowly. She's right. Emma's presence changes the equation. Marcus planned for Richard. He didn't plan for the daughter. Dad looked like I'd shot him, but he stepped back. Okay. Carter pulled a small black device from his vest, no bigger than a quarter, flat and smooth. This is your panic button. The wire picks up audio automatically, but if you're in immediate danger, weapon drawn credible threat, you squeeze this twice fast. That's the signal. We breach within 30 seconds. He pressed it into my palm. I tested the click firm, deliberate. Twice. Thermal imaging shows 2 hostages in the freezer room. Carter continued pulling up a laptop screen. 2 heat signatures, 1 adult-sized, 1 small. Linda Martinez and Liam Volkov, 4 armed hostiles on site, possibly more. Marcus himself may not be physically present. He's been running ops remotely for years. What about bombs? I asked. Carter's silence was answer enough. Jesus, I whispered. We'll have an EOD tech on standby. But Emma, if you see any device wires, timers, vests, you signal immediately. Do not try to negotiate around explosives. I nodded, though my hands were shaking now. Agent Torres stepped forward, the medic who'd cut the tracker from my shoulder 2 hours ago. Her face was kind, but firm. Ms. Martinez, I need to say this. You're approximately 6 weeks pregnant. Your blood pressure is already elevated 140/95. The stress of this operation, the adrenaline spike. There's a significant risk of miscarriage. The room went silent. How significant? I asked. 20 to 30%. Higher if there's physical trauma impact, fall, sustained hypertension. I pressed my hand to my abdomen, barely a curve, yet just a secret I'd been holding for 2 weeks. The baby David somehow knew about before I'd told a soul. Then I'd better make sure nothing goes wrong, I said quietly. Torres didn't look reassured. Neither did Dad. Carter checked his watch. 0 dark at 400 hours. Emma, you'll drive your own vehicle. Marcus will be watching for a convoy. We'll follow at a half-mile interval, lights off. You park in the main lot, walk to the south entrance. Once you're inside, you're on your own for 20 minutes. After that, we move. What if David... I couldn't finish the sentence. If David Volkov points a weapon at you, Sergeant Rodriguez will neutralize the threat. I'm sorry, Ms. Martinez. But I won't risk your life on the hope that a man trained by Marcus Volkov for 12 years will suddenly choose love over survival. I wanted to argue. I wanted to believe that somewhere underneath the lies, the surveillance, the manipulation there was still the man who'd held me on our wedding night and whispered, I wish this could last forever. But Carter was right. That man might never have existed. Understood, I said. Carter handed me a tactical vest, lightweight Kevlar lined. Put this on under your jacket. It won't stop a rifle round, but it'll give you a chance against handguns. I pulled it on, feeling the weight settle over my ribs, over the wire, over the fragile life growing beneath. One more thing, Carter said. Once you're inside, we go silent. No comms, no backup chatter. If Marcus is monitoring frequencies, we can't risk it. You're alone until you signal. Or until 20 minutes, I said. or until 20 minutes. I looked at Dad. His face was gray-aged a decade in a single night. "I love you," I told him. He pulled me into his arms and I felt him trembling. "Come back," he whispered. "Please, Emma, come back." I stepped away, squared my shoulders, and met Carter's gaze. "Let's go." Empty streets stretched ahead as 3 FBI vehicles tailed me from a half-mile back. I couldn't see them. Carter had promised they'd stay dark, no headlights, no sirens, but I felt them there. Shadows in my rearview mirror, ghosts keeping pace. Unit 1 to Principal. Carter's voice crackled through the earpiece hidden beneath my hair. "We have visual, maintaining distance." I didn't respond. The wire would pick up anything I said, but I needed the silence. Needed to think. The Honda's dashboard glowed soft green, 2:47 a.m. 13 minutes until I reached the plant. 73 minutes until the 4 a.m. deadline Marcus had set. I drove through the sleeping heart of Austin, past South Congress, where David and I had walked on our third date, past the coffee shop on East 6th, where we'd accidentally met 5 years ago. The place was dark now, chairs stacked on tables, but I could still see him sitting by the window, laptop open, looking up with that shy smile when I'd fumbled my latte and spilled it across his table. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's okay, really. I wasn't reading anything important." Liar. He'd been reading a dossier on me, learning my habits, my routines, preparing to slot himself into my life like a virus into healthy cells. But I'd laughed. I'd bought him a replacement coffee, and we'd talked for 2 hours about books and law school and Austin traffic. He'd known exactly what to say, exactly how to tilt his head, exactly when to let the conversation drift into comfortable silence. I thought it was fate. I passed the bookstore on West Lynn, where he'd proposed a year later, down on one knee between the poetry and fiction aisles, voice-shaking ring box trembling in his hands. "Emma Martinez, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Will you marry me?" I'd cried. Actually cried mascara, running hands over my mouth, nodding like an idiot because I couldn't speak. The other customers had applauded. Someone took a photo. I'd posted it on social media with the caption, "Luckiest woman alive." God, I'd been so stupid. The wedding had been perfect. October ceremony, string lights over the hill country venue. Dad walking me down the aisle in his dress uniform. Mom crying in the front row. I'd looked at David waiting at the altar, dark suit, nervous smile, eyes wet with tears, and thought, this is it. This is my person. I hadn't noticed the 3 men in the back row with Volkov Enterprises tattoos hidden under their sleeves. Hadn't questioned why David's family was so small, so quiet, so careful not to be photographed. Our wedding night, he'd held me in the honeymoon suite and whispered against my hair, "I don't deserve you." I'd kissed him and said, "Yes, you do." He'd been telling the truth. I just hadn't understood it. The traffic light turned red at Riverside Drive. I stopped alone at the intersection and pressed my hand against my abdomen. 6 weeks. A cluster of cells smaller than a grain of rice, but already human, already mine. Already David's. "I don't know what I'm going to do about you," I whispered. "I don't know if I can raise you knowing where you came from, knowing what your father did." The light turned green. I didn't move. "But I'm going to give you a chance," I said, voice breaking. "I'm going to choose life, even if it's complicated, even if it hurts. You didn't ask for any of this." I pressed the gas and drove forward. 2 weeks ago, David had brought Liam to our house. "My buddy's kid," he'd said casually, setting down a backpack full of toys. "I'm watching him for the weekend, hope that's okay." Liam had been quiet, cautious, 7 years old, with David's dark eyes and a woman's delicate features. I'd made him mac and cheese. We'd played Uno on the living room floor. He'd fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, and I'd covered him with a blanket, brushed hair from his forehead. David had watched from the kitchen doorway, and when I looked up, his face had been raw with something I couldn't name. Hope, maybe. Or grief. "You'd be a good mom," he'd said quietly. I'd smiled. "Someday." He'd turned away. Now I understood. He'd been watching me with his son, the son I didn't know existed, the son Marcus was using to force David's hand. He'd been imagining a different life, a real life where we were a family and the lies didn't exist, and his father's ghost wasn't 20 years deep in Texas soil. But that life had never been possible. David was a victim, I could see that now. 21 years old when Alexander died, grief shattered and vulnerable, molded by Marcus into a weapon over 12 years of manipulation and rage. He'd been trained to hate my father, to infiltrate my life, to destroy me from the inside. But he'd also made choices. He'd said yes, he'd stayed. He'd married me, held me, lied to me for 5 years. And even now, even with a gun in his hand and his son's life on the line, he had options. He could have warned me. He could have run. He could have chosen me. He hadn't. "Carter," I said aloud, voice steady. "I'm 10 minutes out. Copy that. Entry teams in position. Rodriguez has the rooftop. You're clear to proceed." I turned onto East Riverside and the industrial zone rose around me. Chain link fences, gravel lots, warehouses, dark and silent. The meatpacking plant loomed ahead, a low concrete hulk with a single light burning over the south entrance. 3:42 a.m., 18 minutes early. I'd done that on purpose. Arriving early meant control. It meant I was making decisions, not reacting to Marcus's script. It was a small thing, but in a situation where I had almost no power, small things mattered. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced down. "David, I'm sorry. For everything." My throat tightened. I didn't reply. Another buzz. "David, I never wanted this." I turned off the phone and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The parking lot was empty, except for 2 black SUVs near the loading bay. I pulled into a spot 30 yards from the south entrance, killed the engine, and sat in the sudden silence. Through the windshield, I could see the door. Rusted metal, no window, slightly ajar. "Principal is stationary," Carter's voice said in my ear. "We're holding position. 20-minute clock starts when you enter the building." I unclipped my seatbelt. Checked the panic button in my pocket, 2 squeezes, 30-second response. Felt the weight of the Kevlar vest under my jacket, the wire taped between my ribs. I thought of Mom tied to a chair, of Liam in a bomb vest, of Dad back at the storage unit watching this unfold on a screen, helpless. I thought of the baby growing inside me, too small to feel, too fragile to protect. "I'm going in," I said. I opened the door and stepped into the cold pre-dawn air. Gravel crunched under my boots. Somewhere in the distance, a truck rumbled past on the highway. The south entrance door swung wider, and David stepped into the light. He looked wrecked, hollow-eyed, unshaven shoulders, slumped under the weight of everything he'd done. He didn't say anything, just raised one hand palm out like a man surrendering. I walked toward him. When I reached the door, he whispered, "I'm sorry." I looked into his eyes, those eyes I'd loved, those eyes that looked just like Alexander's in the photograph Dad had shown me, and said nothing. I stepped past him into the darkness. The unlocked door shrieked on rusted hinges as I stepped into darkness. Cold air hit me, refrigerated industrial, thick with the smell of blood and raw meat. Steel hooks swung overhead on chains. The floor was slick concrete, stained dark. "Principal is inside," Carter whispered through my earpiece. "Your mother, 40 feet ahead. 3 hostiles on elevated positions. Clock starts mark. 20 minutes. I moved forward slowly, one hand trailing the wall, the other near the panic button in my pocket. The processing floor opened up, conveyor belts, steel tables, industrial saws silent and waiting. Then I saw her. Mom sat under a single halogen light hand zip-tied behind her back, duct tape across her mouth. Her face was bruised, swollen, eye-split lip, but her eyes were alert. When she saw me, she made a sound behind the gag. A warning. I ran to her, dropped to my knees, peeled the tape from her mouth. "Emma, it's a trap." Floodlights exploded overhead. The entire plant lit up blinding white, and I spun around. David stood 15 feet away, handgun held low at his side. His face was wrecked, red eyes, jaw clenched. He looked at me like a drowning man. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. I scanned above him. Metal catwalks ringed the floor 30 feet up. 3 men in tactical gear stood at different angles, assault rifles trained down on us, not on me, on David. One spoke into a radio, "Target arrived, female alone wired." David wasn't in control. He was trapped. Those rifles would drop him the second he stepped out of line. His hand trembled. His eyes kept flicking to the catwalks, then back to me, desperate. "Where's Liam?" I asked. David's gaze shifted to the northeast corner. I followed it. Behind a stack of pallets, a small figure crouched, knees to chest, hands over ears rocking. Liam. He was humming low and rhythmic, the sound a child makes when the world is too much. Dissociation. He wore the camouflage backpack, the one that might be rigged. "Jesus," I whispered. "Emma." Mom's voice cracked. "There's something under my chair." I looked down. Duct taped to the metal legs was a flat gray block, wires, a pressure sensor, a red LED timer 000000 inactive, a bomb. "If I stand," Mom said quietly, "it goes off, 5-pound trigger, I weigh 140. My stomach dropped. "And Liam's backpack," David said, voice breaking. "Same setup, pressure release. If he takes it off..." He couldn't finish. I forced myself to breathe, to think like a lawyer, analyze, find leverage. "Let them go," I said, turning to David. "Keep me. I'm who Marcus wants." David shook his head, miserable. "He wants all of us. He wants your father to watch." A massive screen on the far wall flickered to life. Marcus Volkov, mid-50s, silver temples, expensive suit. He sat in a study, dark wood leather chairs, crystal glass of scotch, somewhere far away, somewhere safe. His smile was cold, surgical. "Miss Martinez," he said, voice smooth. "Thank you for coming." I stared at the camera. "Let my mother and Liam go. This is between you and my father." Marcus chuckled. "You think you can negotiate? You're not the negotiator here, Miss Martinez." He leaned forward. "You're the price." I forced my voice steady. "The devices under my mother's chair and in Liam's backpack, are they real?" Marcus's smile widened. "Does it matter? You believe they're real. David believes they're real. Fear is a far more elegant weapon than C4, Miss Martinez. A real bomb would simply kill, but the belief in a bomb that creates paralysis, desperation, it forces impossible choices." He took a slow sip of scotch. "Besides, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not trying to murder children in explosions. I'm trying to make your father watch you die at the hands of the man you love. Explosives are so inelegant. Then what do you want?" "I want Richard Martinez to feel what I felt 15 years ago. I want him to watch his child die. I want him to live with that image every day. I want him to understand justice is not a badge and a jury. It's blood for blood." "Alexander's death was ruled justified," I said. "Your father," Marcus said softly, "shot my 19-year-old son in the chest and left him to bleed out. Justified." He spat the word. "There is no justification for killing someone's child." I glanced at Liam, still rocking, humming. "Then why are you doing this to yours?" I asked. Marcus's expression didn't change. "David knows what's required. He's known for 12 years. Family is sacrifice. My son understands that." David's face crumpled. The gun sagged. "I can't," he whispered. "Marcus, I can't." "You can," Marcus said, voice ice. "Or Liam dies and you watch. Choose." One of the guards shifted his rifle toward Liam. A red laser dot appeared on the child's back, a tiny circle against the camouflage. Liam kept humming, oblivious. "No." David stepped forward, raising his gun, not at me, at the guard. Instantly, all 3 rifles swung toward him. Red dots bloomed on his chest. "David, stop!" I shouted. He froze, breathing hard. "Put it down," I said, quieter. "Please, you can't save him that way." David looked at me. Really. Looked at me the way he had on our wedding night, and I saw everything he'd buried. Love, guilt, grief. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said. "I know," I told him. He lowered the gun. Marcus leaned back, smiling. How touching. But we're running out of time. The deal is simple. David shoots you. Richard watches via the feed I've sent him. Your mother and Liam go free. If David refuses... He paused, sipping scotch. I detonate both devices. Everyone dies. Richard still watches. The only difference is whether you choose mercy or waste. That's not a choice, I said. No, Marcus agreed. It's justice. Behind me, Mom whispered, Emma the panic button. But I couldn't. Not yet. A 30-second breach with bombs could kill everyone. I needed time. What about David? I asked Marcus. If he shoots me, you let him live. Marcus's smile widened. Of course not. David dies too, but Liam walks out. That's the trade. David closed his eyes. I looked at the boy, hands over ears. 7 years old, innocent. I looked at my mother, zip-tied to a bomb. I thought of the baby inside me. 6 weeks, a life that hadn't started yet. Okay, I said. David's eyes snapped open. Emma. Okay, I repeated louder, staring at the camera. But I want proof Liam and my mother walk out first. You release them, then David shoots me. Marcus tilted his head, considering. No, he said. You don't make deals. You're the price, remember? And he smiled. Before I reveal what Marcus demanded in those final 60 seconds and whether David pulled the trigger drop, a comment with the number 20 if you're still here with me. That number matters in this story, and I need to know you're ready for what comes next. Quick reminder, the following events contain fictional elements for dramatic impact. If intense content isn't for you, feel free to pause here. Still with me, let's continue. Nowhere left to run, I faced the man who'd orchestrated my destruction. You want my father to suffer because he killed Alexander, I said, voice steady. I understand that. Marcus set down his scotch, leaning forward. Not killed, murdered. He was 19 years old. The reports said it was self-defense. Reports. Marcus's lip curled. Your father's reports. Written by his colleagues, rubber-stamped by a prosecutor who owed him favors. Alexander fired 1 shot in panic. Your father put 3 rounds in his chest and watched him bleed out on concrete. I glanced at David. His face was gray gun still hanging at his side. I'm not defending what happened, I said carefully, but making David into a killer that just creates more victims. Victims? Marcus laughed bitter and sharp. You want to talk about victims, I'll tell you about victims. I buried my son on his 20th birthday. I watched my wife drink herself to death within a year. David spent 3 years in psychiatric care because he couldn't process losing his brother. You think I don't know about victims? Then don't make Liam one, I said. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Liam understands sacrifice. He's a Volkov. He's 7 years old. Old enough. The coldness in his voice made my skin crawl. I tried a different angle. You're forcing David to become the thing you hate a man who kills someone's child. How is that justice? Because Richard will watch, Marcus said simply, and he'll know it's his fault. Every day for the rest of his life, he'll wake up knowing his daughter died because he pulled a trigger 15 years ago. That's justice. Behind me, Mom whispered, Emma, don't. Marcus's gaze shifted to her, then back to me. His expression changed something almost like surprise. You didn't tell her, he said to David. David's jaw clenched. He said nothing. Tell me what? I asked. Marcus smiled. You're pregnant, approximately 6 weeks. David's been monitoring your cycle, your symptoms, your hormone levels through blood work he had intercepted from your doctor's office. He paused. You're carrying my grandchild. The air left my lungs. Mom made a strangled sound. Emma. Which makes this so much more poetic, Marcus continued. Richard loses his daughter and his grandchild. I lose mine too, of course, but I've already lost 1 son. I know how to live with that pain. Your father doesn't. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. David's face crumpled. I tried to stop him. You tried nothing, Marcus snapped. You've been stalling for 6 months, David. 3 opportunities to finish this, and you failed every time. The brake line in February, you sabotaged it wrong, gave her a warning light. The security system in May, you triggered the backup alarm. The water contamination in August, you used a dose a child could survive. My mind reeled. 3 attempts, 3 failures. David had been trying to kill me for half a year, but he'd failed. On purpose. You don't have it in you, Marcus said, voice dripping with contempt. You're weak, just like Alexander was weak. David's hand tightened on the gun. So I'm simplifying it, Marcus said. David, raise your weapon. Point it at Emma's chest. You have 60 seconds. If you don't fire, I detonate both devices. Your son dies. Her mother dies. Emma dies anyway. Everyone loses. The 3 guards on the catwalks shifted rifles trained on David, ready to execute if he turned the gun elsewhere. 60 seconds, Marcus repeated. Starting now. David slowly raised the gun barrel, trembling, aiming at my chest. His eyes were swimming with tears. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, Emma, I'm so sorry. I turned to Marcus on the screen. You're lying. You wouldn't kill your grandchild. Marcus's smile didn't waver. I've already sacrificed 1 son. What's 1 grandchild? You're bluffing. I said, gambling everything. The bombs are just bugs. You're using fear to control David. But there's no real explosive. 40 seconds, Marcus said calmly. David's gun was shaking so hard I could see it from 6 feet away. Marcus, please, is there really a bomb on Liam? Please. 30 seconds. Answer me, David screamed, gun still pointed at me, but his voice breaking apart. Did you put a bomb on my son? Marcus leaned back, swirling his scotch. Of course I did. Do you think I'm an idiot? The moment the FBI breaches, I detonate. The moment you turn that gun on anyone but Emma, I detonate. The moment you fail to pull the trigger in, he checked his watch. 20 seconds, I detonate. David's face went white. I looked at Liam in the corner, still rocking, still humming, hands over his ears, completely unaware that he was wearing a bomb. 7 years old. My hand found the panic button in my pocket. If Marcus was telling the truth, breaching now would kill everyone. If he was lying, it was our only chance. I had 10 seconds to decide. David's finger moved to the trigger. I'm sorry, he said again, and this time his voice was empty, hollow, the sound of a man with nothing left. 10 seconds, Marcus said. Mom screamed, Emma, no! David's gun steadied, aimed directly at my heart. 5. I looked into David's eyes and saw the exact moment he made his decision. 4. His finger tightened on the trigger. 3. I squeezed the panic button twice. 2. David's gun swung away from me toward the screen toward Marcus. 1. And he fired. Everything happened in seconds, but horror stretched time into forever. David pulled the trigger. I flinched. The bullet punched through the massive screen. Glass exploded outward in a glittering spray. Marcus's face shattered into 1,000 fragments, his voice cutting mid-word, replaced by sparking wires and smoke. The 3 guards on the catwalk spun toward David, rifles snapping up. Traitor! One screamed. I squeezed the panic button twice hard. Doors exploded inward loading bay. South entrance, black-clad, FBI agents pouring through like a flood. Carter's voice roared, Federal agents, drop your weapons! A window shattered above. Sergeant Rodriguez's sniper rifle, braced on the rooftop, fired twice in rapid succession. 2 guards on the catwalks jerked backward, rifles clattering to the floor below. The 3rd guard turned his weapon toward the breach team. Rodriguez's 3rd shot dropped him. He tumbled over the railing body, hitting the concrete floor with a sickening crunch, 30 feet down. Then I heard it. Beeping. High-pitched rapid coming from 2 directions at once, Mom's chair and Liam's backpack. Bomb! Someone shouted. David didn't hesitate. He sprinted to Liam, grabbed the camouflage backpack, ripped it off the boy's shoulders. Liam screamed, hands flying to his ears, but David was already tearing open the zipper. Inside, a cylindrical device, wires exposed, red LED, flashing faster now. Beep, 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 beep. An FBI tech, in full EOD gear, lunged forward, took one look, and yelled, "Flashbang, cover your eyes!" Too late. David was holding it, staring at the device in his hands, and I saw the exact moment he understood what Marcus had done. Not a bomb, a stun grenade, non-lethal, a lie. It detonated in his grip. The explosion was white light and thunder, a shockwave that slammed through the plant like a physical wall. I threw my arm over my face, but the flash burned through my eyelids, searing my retinas. Sound vanished, replaced by a single high-pitched whine tinnitus, so loud it felt like my eardrums were splitting. I couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't think. When my vision cleared, just shapes blurred, and swimming I saw David on his back 6 feet from where he'd been standing. His hands were charred black skin, peeling smoke rising from his palms. His eyes were open, but unseeing pupils blown, wide mouth moving, but no sound coming out. Liam was on the ground beside him, curled into a ball, screaming silently. I couldn't hear him, but I could see his mouth open, his small body shaking. Mom was screaming too, or I thought she was her chair tipping. Sideways zip ties, still binding her wrists, the device under her seat beeping faster, about to second device. The EOD tech yelled, sprinting toward her. Carter reached her first, dropped to his knees, slid a multi-tool from his vest, started cutting the zip ties. Don't move. Pressure sensor. The side door, the one no one had been watching, burst open. 2 men in black tactical gear, Volkov's backup team, rifles up and firing. Muzzle flashes lit the dim corner like strobe lights. Bullets tore through the air, punching into steel tables, concrete walls ricocheting with sparks. One of the FBI agents went down, clutching his leg. Another returned fire glass from the overhead lights, raining down in a glittering cascade. Dad appeared in the doorway behind them. Dad, who was supposed to stay at Unit 20, his service pistol drawn, face twisted with rage. "Emma!" he screamed. One of the backup shooters turned toward him. I couldn't hear the shot, but I saw Dad drop behind a steel table, bullets chewing into the metal where he'd been standing a second before. Carter cut through the last zip tie, grabbed Mom under the arms, and pulled. She came off the chair. The device under the seat detonated. Another flashbang. Another wall of light and sound and pressure. The chair flipped backward, metal legs bending, and Mom and Carter went sprawling, smoking debris, scattering across the floor. Mom rolled onto her side, coughing, hands pressed to her ears, alive. The gunfight escalated. FBI agents behind cover, backup shooters advancing, bullets everywhere. Rodriguez fired again from the rooftop, dropping one of the backup shooters mid-step. The second shooter pivoted toward David, who was still on the ground, defenseless hands, too, burned to hold a weapon. The shooter raised his rifle, aimed at David's head. I didn't think. I lunged forward, legs pumping, blood pounding in my deaf ears, and slammed into David's shoulder, shoving him sideways. The bullet meant for his skull tore through my upper left shoulder instead. Pain exploded, white-hot, searing, worse than anything I'd ever felt. My legs gave out. I hit the concrete floor, hard blood already spreading across my shirt, hot and sticky. Through the haze of agony, I saw Dad rise from behind the steel table and fire 3 times. The second backup shooter went down, rifle skittering away. The plant went silent, or maybe I just couldn't hear anymore. I lay on my back, staring up at the swinging meat hooks overhead, blood pooling beneath me. My shoulder felt like it was on fire, the pain radiating down my arm, up my neck, into my jaw. I couldn't move my left hand, couldn't feel my fingers. David's face appeared above me, his ruined hands hovering uselessly, tears streaming down his soot-blackened face. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. I tried to speak. My voice sounded distant, muffled, like I was underwater. "Why?" David was asking. I could read his lips. "Why did you save me?" Blood bubbled up in my throat. I coughed, tasted copper. Because I managed each word, agony. Someone has to end this cycle. His face crumpled. He bent over me, forehead pressing against mine, and I felt his tears drip onto my cheeks. Dad was there, suddenly kneeling beside me, hands pressing hard against my shoulder. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see the panic in his eyes. Behind him, FBI medics swarmed, someone cutting my shirt away, someone else pressing gauze against the wound. Mom crawled over, her bruised face appearing in my narrowing field of vision. Her lips moved. "Stay with me, baby. Stay with me." I tried to nod, tried to tell her I was okay. But the edges of my vision were going dark, the pain fading into a strange, cold numbness. And the last thing I saw before everything went black was Liam Small. Traumatized Liam being carried out by an FBI agent, his hands still pressed over his ears, his mouth still open in a silent scream. And David, ruined hands and all reaching for me. The smell of antiseptic and steady beeping pulled me back to consciousness. White ceiling tiles. Fluorescent lights dimmed low. An IV line trailing from my left arm. My right shoulder wrapped in thick bandages, a dull throb pulsing with every heartbeat. Hospital. I turned my head slowly, everything hurt, and saw Dad slumped in a chair beside my bed chin, on his chest, still wearing the tactical vest over his blood-stained shirt. He jerked awake the moment I moved, eyes red-rimmed and wild. "Emma." His voice cracked. He reached for my hand, gripped it tight. "Thank God, you've been out for 2 hours. They said the surgery went well, but—" "Baby." I whispered, my free hand moving instinctively to my abdomen. "Is the baby—" The door opened. A woman in a white coat entered, late 40s, dark hair, pulled back, stethoscope around her neck. Her ID badge read, Dr. Rachel Bennett, OB/GYN in trauma surgery. "Ms. Martinez," she said, pulling up a rolling stool. "I'm Dr. Bennett. I've been overseeing your care. How are you feeling?" "The baby." I repeated louder now. "Is the baby okay?" Dr. Bennett's expression was calm but serious. "The fetal heartbeat is strong and steady. That's the good news." I waited, breath caught in my throat. The gunshot wound was a through and through, entered your upper left shoulder, exited cleanly through the trapezius muscle. No bone damage, no major arteries hit. "You'll need physical therapy, but you should recover full function." "But," I asked because I could hear the but coming. Dr. Bennett pulled up a tablet, swiped to an ultrasound image. The trauma, the stress, the blood pressure spike, the physical impact caused what we call a subchorionic hematoma. It's a blood clot between the uterine wall and the gestational sac. I stared at the grainy black and white image. A tiny flicker in the center, the heartbeat, and beside it, a dark shadow. "What does that mean?" Dad asked quietly. "It means there's an increased risk of miscarriage over the next 2 to 3 weeks, Dr. Bennett said. "Right now, Ms. Martinez is approximately 6 to 7 weeks pregnant, still very much in the high-risk first trimester. The hematoma could resolve on its own, or it could lead to bleeding and pregnancy loss." The room tilted. I gripped the bed rail. "What can I do?" I asked. "Absolute bed rest for 14 days. Progesterone supplementation to support the pregnancy. No physical exertion. No stress." She paused, gave me a pointed look, which I understand may be difficult given the circumstances. "But your body needs time to heal. The next 2 weeks will tell us everything." "Will my baby live?" I whispered. Dr. Bennett's face softened. "I can't make promises, but I've seen women recover from worse. Give your body time. Rest. Let us monitor you closely." I nodded, tears spilling over. Relief and terror tangled together. Dad squeezed my hand. "We'll make sure you rest. I'll stay with you. Your mother will too once she's discharged." "Mom's here?" I asked. "2 floors down," Dad said. "Bruised ribs, mild concussion, but she's okay. Carter brought her in right after they brought you." As if summoned, Carter appeared in the doorway, still in tactical gear, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Ms. Martinez," he said, nodding. "Glad to see you awake." "What happened?" I asked, and after I passed out. Carter stepped inside, arms crossed. "We secured the plant. 3 Volkov operatives, dead 2 in custody. Your mother and Liam were transported here for evaluation. Liam's with Child Protective Services temporarily physical exam shows no injuries, but he's severely traumatized. Nonverbal since the flashbang." My chest tightened. "And David?" Carter's expression hardened. "In federal custody, handcuffed to a hospital bed 1 floor up. His hands required skin grafts for second-degree burns. He'll be arraigned on multiple charges, conspiracy accessory to kidnapping, attempted murder, racketeering. And Marcus? I asked. Fled, Carter said, voice tight with frustration. Private jet out of a rural airstrip outside Houston landed in Monterrey, Mexico 6 hours ago. We've alerted Interpol, issued a red notice, frozen $18 million in assets tied to Volkov Enterprises. We arrested 40 members of his network across 3 states. But he's gone, I said flatly. For now. Carter leaned against the wall. But David's cooperation will be critical. He knows every safe house, every contact, every financial route Marcus uses. His testimony could dismantle the entire organization. I closed my eyes. He asked to see me, didn't he? Carter nodded. Requested you specifically. Wants you as legal counsel. I laughed, bitter, exhausted. That's a conflict of interest. I'm a victim. I can't represent him. He knows that, Carter said. But he trusts you. And frankly, Ms. Martinez, if you're willing to advise him strategically, even informally, it could save lives. The faster we locate Marcus, the safer everyone is. I looked at Dad. His jaw was clenched, but he didn't argue. I'll see him, I said quietly. Once. Not as his lawyer, as I don't know what. Dr. Bennett frowned. Ms. Martinez, I strongly advise. 5 minutes, I said. Then I'll rest, I promise. 20 minutes later, a nurse wheeled me to the secured wing. 2 federal marshals stood outside David's room. Inside, David sat propped up in bed, both hands wrapped in white gauze up to his elbows, an oxygen line under his nose, handcuffs chaining his ankle to the bed rail. He looked up when I entered. His face was hollow, eyes, sunken lips, cracked. Emma, he breathed. I positioned my wheelchair beside his bed, careful not to jar my shoulder. I'm not your lawyer. I can't be. But I'll consult strategically for Liam's sake, not yours. David nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. Silence stretched between us. Did you ever love me? I asked. The question I'd been holding since the plant. David's eyes filled. It started as an act. Marcus gave me your file, told me to study you to become the man you'd fall for. But by the 3rd date, his voice broke. By the 3rd date, I was in love with you. Everything after that was me trying to find a way out. You had 5 years, I said. I know. A tear slid down his cheek. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I need you to know. It was real. Even if it started as a lie, it became real. I looked at his ruined hands, thought of the baby growing inside me, thought of the choice I'd made to push him out of the bullet's path. I can't be your attorney, I repeated. Conflict of interest, but I'll help coordinate your defense strategy, recommend counsel advise on plea deals. Not for you, for Liam. He deserves a father who tries to do the right thing even if it's too late. David closed his eyes, nodding. I turned my wheelchair toward the door. Emma, he said softly. I looked back. Thank you for saving my life. I didn't reply, just left. Back in my room, Dr. Bennett was waiting with paperwork. I'm referring you to Dr. Sarah Williams, a trauma-informed OB specialist. She'll monitor you closely over the next month. I nodded, exhausted. The door opened again. Mom appeared leaning on a crutch, her face still bruised, but her eyes sharp. Emma, sweetheart, she said, voice trembling. There's something I need to tell you about the day I was taken. I looked at her, at the woman who'd sat on a bomb for me, who'd survived Marcus Volkov's rage and knew whatever she was about to say, it would change everything. What is it, Mom? She glanced at Dad, then back at me. I knew, she whispered. Dad stepped outside at Mom's request. This conversation needed privacy. Mom lowered herself into the chair beside my bed crutch, propped against the armrest, her bruised face tight with something between shame and determination. What did you mean, I knew? I asked quietly. She took a shaky breath. 8 months ago, there was an envelope at our front door. No return address, no postmark. Just my name written in block letters. I waited. Inside were documents. Mom continued, voice barely above a whisper. Police reports, psychiatric evaluations, crime scene photos. All of them about the night your father shot Alexander Volkov. My stomach tightened. What did they say? That Richard murdered him in cold blood. Mom's eyes filled with tears. That Alexander was unarmed, shot in the back, and your father planted a weapon on the body to justify it. that the entire self-defense story was fabricated, covered up by his colleagues, rubber-stamped by a corrupt prosecutor. I stared at her. "You believed that—" "I didn't know what to believe," she said, voice breaking. "There were photographs, Emma, crime scene images I'd never seen before, angles that looked wrong. And there was a psychiatric evaluation claiming your father exhibited antisocial tendencies, that he'd been flagged for excessive force 3 times before Alexander's death." "Mom, there was a note." She interrupted, pulling a folded piece of paper from her pocket with trembling hands. "This." She handed it to me. I unfolded it, carefully read the typewritten words, "Mrs. Martinez, your husband is dangerous. He has been lying to you for 15 years. He is now targeting your daughter. I am trying to protect her, but I need your help. Call this number." A concerned father. At the bottom, a phone number. No name. A concerned father. I repeated, cold realization washing over me. "Marcus." Mom nodded, wiping her eyes. "I didn't know that then. I just knew if there was even a chance Richard was a threat to you, I had to know the truth." "So you called the number—" "No." Mom shook her head. "I'm not an idiot, Emma. I've been married to a cop for 30 years. I know how evidence works. So I took the documents to a private investigator, first someone outside Austin PD, someone with no connection to your father. And," I asked, "he ran forensic tests. Paper analysis, ink dating, digital metadata on the scanned police reports." Mom's voice steadied, gaining strength. Every single document was a forgery. Sophisticated, expensive forgeries, but fake. The crime scene photos were digitally altered. The psychiatric evaluation was fabricated using a real doctor's stolen credentials. Even the note was printed on paper manufactured this year, not 15 years ago. Relief flooded through me. "So you knew Dad was innocent." "I knew Marcus Volkov was trying to manipulate me," Mom said, "but I didn't understand why until it was too late." "What do you mean?" Mom gripped her crutch knuckles white. "The investigator told me the forgeries were designed to do one thing: make me doubt Richard. Make me afraid of him, isolate me, turn me against my own family." She looked at me, eyes raw. "Marcus was weaponizing my love for you, Emma. He knew if I thought you were in danger, I'd do anything, even betray my husband." "But you didn't," I said. "I tried to warn Richard," Mom said. "The day of the funeral, I was going to pull him aside, show him the envelope, tell him everything. But when I got to the cemetery—" Her voice cracked. "2 men grabbed me in the parking lot, chloroformed me. I woke up zip-tied to that chair. I reached for her hand, squeezed it. 'I'm so sorry,' Mom whispered. 'I should have told Richard the moment I got that envelope. I should have trusted him. But I was scared and I wanted proof first, and Marcus used that against me.' Mom." I made her look at me. "You did trust Dad. You hired an investigator to prove the documents were fake. You tried to warn him. You didn't betray anyone." "I hesitated," she said, "and that hesitation almost got you killed." "No." I squeezed her hand harder. "Marcus almost got me killed. You fought back the only way you knew how, by finding the truth. That's not betrayal. That's courage." Mom broke down, tears streaming. "I was so afraid. When I was sitting on that bomb, all I could think was, if I die, you'll never know I didn't betray your father. You'll think I was working with Marcus. I never thought that—" I said, though, part of me wondered if I might have, if things had gone differently. "Marcus wanted us to destroy each other from the inside," Mom said, wiping her face. "He wanted Richard to think I'd betrayed him, wanted you to think I was complicit, wanted me paralyzed by fear and doubt. He wanted our family to tear itself apart before he ever pulled a trigger. I thought of the 5 years David had spent embedding himself in my life, the surveillance, the lies, the slow, methodical destruction of trust. 'That's what he does,' I said quietly. 'He doesn't just kill people. He makes them kill each other.' Mom nodded. And he almost succeeded. The door opened. Dad stood in the doorway, face uncertain, looking between us. 'Richard,' Mom said, voice thick. 'I need to tell you.' I heard, Dad said, quietly stepping inside. I was listening outside. I'm sorry, Linda, I needed to know. Mom's face crumpled. I should have told you immediately. Dad crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled her into his arms. You did exactly what I would have done. You verified the evidence before acting. That's not betrayal, that's good police work. Mom sobbed against his chest. I watched them, my parents who'd survived 15 years of Marcus Volkov's shadow, who'd been manipulated and terrorized and nearly destroyed, and I felt something shift inside me. Marcus had tried to turn us into weapons against each other. He'd failed. I gestured to Dad. Both of you, come here. They moved to either side of my hospital bed. I took their hands, one in each of mine. From now on, I said, voice steady, this family tells the truth. No more secrets, no more hesitation. We fight together or we don't fight at all. Dad nodded, jaw tight. Mom squeezed my hand. Together. Together? I repeated. Outside the window, dawn was breaking over Austin, pink and gold, a new day. We'd survived the night. Now we had to survive what came next. 2 years had reshaped everything, not into perfection, but into something survivable. I was 36 now, visiting Texas State Prison once a month with Daniel balanced on my hip. 2 years old, dark curls like his father's eyes, like mine, bright and curious, and full of questions I didn't know how to answer yet. David sat across the plexiglass divider in a wheelchair, hands functional now after 3 skin graft surgeries, but his legs motionless. Paralyzed from the waist down, shrapnel from the flashbang had severed his spinal cord. Year 2 of a 12-year sentence. He's gotten so big, David said, voice soft, pressing his palm against the glass. Daniel mimicked him, tiny hand against the barrier. Dada. My throat tightened. He's talking more. Dada? Mama? No. David smiled, sad, broken, but real. Sounds about right? Liam sat beside me, 9 years old, now quieter than most kids his age. Some visits he came. Other visits were too hard. Today was a good day. Hey, bud, David said to his older son. Hi, Dad. Liam's voice was small but steady. I thought about the early days when none of this seemed possible. 2 weeks after the shooting, I'd been lying in bed on strict rest, staring at an ultrasound screen while Dr. Bennett pointed to the dark shadow beside the flickering heartbeat. The hematoma is shrinking, she'd said. That's a very good sign. By week 4, it was completely resolved. Your baby is a fighter, Ms. Martinez. I'd cried then, relief, gratitude, disbelief. Daniel had fought to stay, so had I. The day he was born, January 2024, full term 7 pounds 3 ounces, the nurses called him the miracle baby. I'd held him exhausted and aching and overwhelmed and whispered, you fought so hard to be here, thank you. Liam had met his half-brother 2 days later, standing stiffly beside my hospital bed, unsure. You can touch him, I'd said gently. Liam reached out one finger, brushed Daniel's tiny fist. Daniel's hand closed around it instinctively, and Liam's face broke into the first real smile I'd seen in months. Now watching Daniel press his hand against the glass to mirror his father's, I felt the weight of those 2 years, the surgeries, the therapy, the court dates, the slow rebuilding of something that looked almost like a life. I remembered the day Marcus was arrested. I'd been 6 months pregnant, standing in my living room with Dad watching the news. The screen had shown Marcus Volkov in handcuffs, flanked by Mexican federal police and FBI agents, being loaded onto an extradition plane. His face was expressionless, but his eyes cold, calculating and scanned the cameras like he was memorizing every face. Carter had stood at a podium based on intelligence provided by cooperating witness David Volkov Mexican authorities, and the FBI executed a coordinated raid on a villa outside Puerto Vallarta. Marcus Volkov is now in U.S. custody and will face federal charges. Dad had turned to me, answering the question before I could ask it. Marcus fled on a private jet the night of the plant raid. Used a fake flight plan, filed under a shell company, listed as a medical transport for a critically ill patient. By the time we flagged it, the plane was already in Mexican airspace. He'd arranged cartel protection in Puerto Vallarta, thought he was untouchable. But David gave us the location. Carter had added during his press conference. The villa, the security codes, the escape routes. Without his cooperation, Marcus would still be hiding. Instead, he'll spend the rest of his life in a concrete cell. I'd sat down heavily, hand on my swollen belly, tears streaming. "It's over," I'd whispered. "It's really over." Dad had squeezed my shoulder. "Not until the trial, but we're close." The trial had come in October 2024, 1 year after the shooting. I'd sat in the federal courtroom with Daniel, 3 months old, sleeping in a carrier strapped to my chest. Marcus Volkov had sat at the defense table in a gray suit, silver hair, neatly combed, hands folded. He'd looked like a businessman, not a monster. David had testified via video from prison, face gaunt but resolute. My father orchestrated the kidnapping of Linda Martinez and held my 7-year-old son hostage with an explosive device to force my compliance. He ordered me to kill Emma Martinez and her father, Richard Martinez. When I refused, he detonated stun grenades that caused permanent injury. The jury had deliberated 4 hours. Guilty on all counts, sentencing life without parole plus 80 years consecutive. A DX Florence, Colorado, the Supermax facility that held the worst of the worst. The judge's voice had been cold. "Mr. Volkov, you weaponized your own family. You endangered children. You will spend the rest of your life in a concrete cell, and the world will be safer for it." Marcus hadn't reacted, but as the marshals led him out, he'd passed the screen showing David's feed. His lips had moved silent. "You're dead to me." David's face on the monitor had shown pain. Yes, but also relief. Finally, free. Now 2 years later, I watched David talk softly to his sons through plexiglass and felt something settle in my chest. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acceptance. That evening, we had Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's. Liam helped Mom set the table while I fed Daniel mashed sweet potatoes in his high chair. Dad opened the oven, pulled out a roasting pan, and the metal lid slipped from his hand, hitting the tile floor with a deafening clang. Liam froze mid-step, hands flying to his ears, breathing fast and shallow eyes wide and unfocused. I was at his side in 2 seconds, kneeling, voice calm. "Liam, look at me. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. His breathing slowed. 4, 5, 6. "Good, you're safe. It was just a pot lid. You're okay." He nodded, hands dropping. "I'm sorry. Loud noises are still a trigger." "I know, sweetheart. You're doing great." Later, as we cleared dishes, Liam asked quietly, "Am I going to be broken like my dad? I have PTSD." I knelt again, met his eyes. "You're not broken. You're healing. Scars mean you survived, and you're going to grow up strong and brave, Liam. I know it." "Daniel almost didn't get born, right?" I blinked, startled. "That's right. After everything that happened, the doctors weren't sure. But he fought to be here, just like you fought to heal." Liam looked at his baby half-brother, something soft crossing his face. "He's tough. So are you." That night after Daniel was asleep, I checked my phone. An email from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, inmate status update, Marcus Volkov. Status incarcerated ADX, Florence, Colorado, Supermax. Security level maximum. Parole, hearing, not applicable, life without parole. I showed Dad. They're keeping him at ADX Florence. That's where they keep the worst. Dad nodded. El Chapo, the Unabomber, the Boston Marathon bomber, Marcus is with them now. "Do you feel safe?" I asked. Dad looked at Daniel, asleep in the pack and play. "Safe, no. Marcus had connections. Someone from his old network might come looking for revenge someday. But Marcus himself, he met my eyes. He's 67 years old in a 7x12 cell 23 hours a day in solitary. He'll die there, so safer than 2 years ago." I nodded slowly. That was enough. Later, sitting on the porch with coffee, I watched the Austin stars and thought about everything we'd survived. Marcus was locked in ADX Florence, a concrete tomb. He'd never leave. But I still kept cameras, panic buttons, a security system that could summon police in 90 seconds. Not because of Marcus, because someone from his old organization might still hold a grudge. Carter had warned me, "We got the head of the snake, but pieces of the body are still out there." Still, knowing Marcus would die in that cell, it helped me breathe easier. I looked at the stars, hand drifting to my abdomen out of habit, even though Daniel was 2 now and there was no baby there. My life hadn't turned out the way I'd planned, but it was mine, and Marcus Volkov would never touch it again. Looking back, I realized this story isn't just about family revenge or family betrayal. It's about breaking cycles that destroy generations. Marcus turned his grief into a weapon of family revenge, using it to justify manipulating his own son for 15 years. David was caught between loyalty and love, trapped by family betrayal he never asked for, forced to choose between killing me or watching his child die. And me, I nearly became another casualty of family revenge, almost losing my parents, my husband, and my unborn child, because one man chose vengeance over healing. The family betrayal David committed wasn't born from hate. It was born from fear and years of psychological control. Here's what I learned. Don't let someone else's anger become your prison. Don't assume the people you love are exactly who they seem, but don't stop loving them when you learn the truth. And most importantly, thank God for second chances. I thank God my baby survived. I thank God my mother found courage to verify the truth instead of reacting in fear. I thank God for the moment David chose to shoot a screen instead of me. My advice: don't be like me. Don't ignore red flags because you're in love. Trust, but verify. If this story made you think, please leave a comment below. What would you do if you discovered your parent faked their death? Share this video, subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything. Thank you for staying until the end. A quick note, upcoming stories contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other options. Take care.